Good evening. I'd like to call the February meeting of the Cranston City Council to order. Clerk, please take the roll. Present.
Here.
Present. 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 Here. Present. Present. Everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's not shut the lights off. Under public acknowledgments and commendations, Director Muskin.
On behalf of Mayor Fung, I'm honored tonight to address all of you and recognize our Cranston Fire Department. On January 29th, 2018, our fire department responded to a call to an alarm on Elmwood Avenue at a jewelry plant, which also contained a high amount of chemicals. When they arrived at the scene, they successfully removed all civilians and were able to put out a fire that could have potentially led to a mass casualty. Split-second decisions had to be made under the leadership of Deputy Chief Valletta, who was the incident commander on scene. A decision was made to have firefighters go in, put out that fire at potential risk to firefighters to protect the surrounding neighborhoods. We could have had a mass casualty, and that's not a dramatic statement. We had chemicals, we had a fire, we had reactions, and we had neighborhoods behind there that could have been tremendously impacted. Again, split-second decisions at risk to our firefighters. We did have several firefighters that were transported that evening. I believe 14 firefighters went to the hospital that night, exhibiting signs of chemical exposure. Yet, despite the risk, despite the concern for their own safety and well-being and their own families, they did what they had to do to protect our neighborhoods. I spoke with Chief McKenna after, who indicated, and we've spoke repeatedly throughout this, the fine work and the fine decision-making that was made that night from the deputy chief right down to all privates and everybody who were involved in that situation. It was exemplary. We can duke it out all we want over budgets and money and all of those other things, but when push comes to shove, it's one city, one team, and our Cranston Fire Department did what they do best, and that is serve the public, protect public safety. Not one member of the public was harmed or hurt in this, despite the fact that firefighters have risked their own well-being. So with that being said, I'd like to call members of the fire department up this evening and present a citation on behalf of Mayor Fung. This is to certify and make known unto all to whom these present shall come that Mayor Alan W. Fung hereby issues a citation to the Cranston Fire Department in recognition and appreciation of the department's service during a chemical fire on January 29th, 2018. First responding firefighters successfully ensured the safety of building occupants and the public, coordinated efforts seamlessly with statewide fire departments and hazmat crews, and protected the neighborhood from further damage through their expertise. The City of Cranston extends its sincerest gratitude to the Cranston Fire Department. Alan W. Fung, Mayor.
Thank you. I accept this on behalf of all the 200 men and women of the Cranston Fire Department, the 67 firefighters who presented themselves that night on Elmwood Avenue, many of them coming in off duty or having been relieved from duty to support their brother firefighters and sister firefighters who had been injured that night. And especially to the 14 firefighters that we transported to the hospital that evening. 4 of them still remain out of work. 4 of them have some injuries that will take some time to heal. We'll be monitoring our firefighters for years to come. They did exemplary work. I'm extremely proud of the work they did that night. I'm extremely proud of the job they did in protecting the citizens of Cranston. A job well done.
So normally we don't do this. We consider this our job, what we did that night. But this was a special occasion because we stopped in the words of the chemical company that came in afterwards to clean this place up, in the words of that company, it would have been beyond catastrophic if the firefighters did not enter that building that night and put that fire out. So that's why we're here tonight. And like I said, we normally don't do this. We consider this our job. That's what we get paid for to do. And if you were to give at every city council meeting commendations to the police or fire departments of this city, we'd be giving commendations at every city council meeting because of the remarkable work that police and fire do in this city that the citizens don't even know what we do on a daily basis. I want to thank the men and women of the fire department, especially the first 3 companies in that went in that building and put this fire out. It wasn't easy sending you in there, but I knew we had a job to do. I want to thank the firefighters that came in on the 2nd and 3rd alarm to assist the firefighters that were injured. And I want to thank the brothers and sisters that came back when we knew we had firefighters down. We called all off-duty firefighters back, and we had a bunch of people come back. So I want to end with a quote, how I feel about the men and women of this fire department. And this is a quote from George Washington. I had to add women to it because back in those days, they didn't consider women the way they should have. Equality like us. But this is from George Washington. Associate yourself with men and women of good quality if you esteem your own reputation. For 'tis better to be alone than be in bad company. And I'm in the greatest company. It is my honor to be your incident commander or your deputy chief. Thank you.
As Council President, I think I can speak for the entirety of the Cranston City Council. Thank you for all the men and women that were first responders that day. What you do for the city on a day-to-day basis can never be unshown, but thank you so much. Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, Council President. I'm so fortunate to be living in this city and knowing that our first responders are going to take care of us. Having worked at Cranston East for many years in my career, I had the opportunity to work in the, I guess it would be the security field, working with the vice principal. On a daily basis, he is challenged by some of the things that teenagers do. Well, we had an incident on December 20th, and our vice principal ran from his office all the way up to the top floor of Cranston East. And there was some type of pushing and shoving in which he broke up the incident. He went all the way back downstairs to his office, and while he was in his office, he didn't feel well. The principal came in. At that point, conditions were getting pretty serious, where he had fainted. Defibrillators in the school, which are there for public safety, were applied. They didn't work. In the meantime, we had a group of very heroic first responders from our fire department that showed up at Cranston East, took our vice principal, put him into the ambulance, and brought him to, I believe, Kent County Hospital. While they were on the way, again, they applied defibrillators. He had completely flatlined at that point, and our first responders revived him and brought him literally back to life. And it is my pleasure today to call them in, as well as to present our vice principal this evening, to honor them and thank them for their response, because we never know who it's going to happen to, when it's going to happen, but in this case, they saved a very, very good friend of mine from passing, and hopefully he'll be back within the next week or so, literally back in Cranston East protecting our students. So with that, I'd like to read the proclamation and then call our firemen forward. It says, be it known to all that the Cranston City Council hereby issues this congratulatory citation of the Cranston Fire Department Engine 2 for outstanding performance in the line of duty when responding to a rescue run on December 20th. The entire council extends its sincerest congratulations and expresses their appreciation for his commitment, dedication, and service to the residents of Cranston. In witness whereof we set our hands and seal on this 26th day of February 2018. At this point, I would like to ask our Vice Principal, Mr. Chris D'Ambrosia, to come forward. I think he looks pretty good today, doesn't he? I would like to call Councilman Chris Poplaskis to come up and help me with these proclamations and these citations. The first one to Acting Lieutenant Adam Bonner. To Lieutenant Nick Kachiri. To Private Anthony Cordo. Private Henry Mason. And finally to Captain Brian Nomorowski. Anyone that would like to take some? And the firemen, I'm more than happy to allow you to step up to the opening.
On behalf of the Cranston City Council, again, thank you to our great firefighters and rescue runs in Cranston. Councilman Hopkins, I believe you have another one?
I have a few of them tonight, Mr. President. This is a great night for Cranston East. All of you Thunderbolt followers, we've had some championship teams this fall, and we've had a great winter as well, but what we We brought the football team in last month, and because we've had so many championships at Cranston East this year, we had to split it up. So tonight we have our Cranston East girls volleyball varsity 2017 Division II state champions, Division II North champions. And I'd like to add to this that the volleyball team has not lost a game in 2 years. They are 30-0. And their head coach, Meg McGonigal, was recently named as the Words Unlimited Female Coach of the Year. So we are well represented by our girls volleyball team. They haven't lost in a long, long time, a couple of years. So great job, ladies. What I'd like to do is read this proclamation. It says, be it known to all that the Cranston City Council hereby issues this congratulatory citation to head coach Meg McGonigal of the Cranston East Volleyball Girls Varsity in capturing the 2017 Division II State Championship and ending its season with a perfect 17-0 record. The entire council extends its sincerest congratulations and very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses their hope for continued success. Again, I'd like to ask all of the girls volleyball team to come up forward and we will give you your proclamations. I know again, we can stay here and take some pictures. Come on over. And we have Coach Ron Lee, a good friend of mine for many, many years. I had the pleasure to hire him as the volleyball coach way, way back. He is here representing the coaching staff tonight. So again, ladies, I'm going to give all of these to your coach. We're going to take some pictures and he will then pass them out to you. And again, if anyone would like to come forward to take a quick picture, please step into the council chambers. Continuing along with the line of success, and I'd be remiss if I need to tell you that it starts at the top. Our principal from Cranston East, Sean Kelly, is in the back of the room, and Sean, we want to congratulate you as well. Okay, the next awards go to our Cranston East Boys Varsity Soccer Team, 2017 Division III Regular Season Champions and Division III State Champions. Be it known to all that the Cranston City Council hereby issues this congratulatory citation of the Cranston High School East Boys Varsity Soccer in capturing the 2017 Division III Regular Season Championship and the Division III State Championship. The entire council extends its sincerest congratulations and very best wishes on this memorable occasion and express their hope for their continued success. Again, I ask all members of the boys soccer team to please come up. Just as a side note, this may be the only team in the state that is coached by a father and his son. Coach Grady, congratulations, and your son as well as being your assistant.
Congratulations to both groups of student athletes. My assumption is that you guys might not be staying for the rest of the ceremony this evening, so as people leave, as student athletes leave and the firefighters leave, if everybody could just move down, the people in the back could try to take a seat in the gallery for us.
Okay, and our final citation tonight, we move over to the western side of the city. Has anyone in here played football for Cranston West? Oh, Council President Farina, okay. Good job. Be it known to all that the Cranston City Council hereby issues this congratulatory citation to Will Such of Cranston High School West football team in being named the Rhode Island Gatorade Player of the Year. The entire council extends its sincerest congratulations and very best wishes on this memorable occasion and express their hope for their continued success. And I would like, with Will, to come up. Will, if your parents are here, they can come up with you. And your high school principal, Tom Barberi. Just as a side note, they always talk about athletes not being the brightest bulbs. Well, I was an athlete. Mike was an athlete. Will, we can congratulate him now for being accepted to Brown University, so he'll be playing for Brown the next few years. Congratulations, Will.
Congratulations, Mr. Such. The only way our names should be mentioned together is that we both played high school football at Cranston West. Congratulations on all the success. Okay, with that, I'm going to say again that due to fire code regulations, we've been kind of violating them all evening. I'm sure the chief is going to eyeball me soon. I need everybody to slide down in the row you're sitting in. If there are seats available, I need everyone standing in the back, unless they're a firefighter or a police officer, to be seated, as they're kind of on duty. So, as people are taking their seats, before we move to public hearings, tonight there is a resolution on the docket that was added tonight. The reason that is there is because I will not be asking for passage tonight. I will actually be asking for it to be sent to a special committee I will be creating for review. That committee will be led by Council Vice President Favicchio. We'll have a member of the minority, a member of the majority, a member of the school committee, a member of the school administration, a member of the mayor's administration, and I will be asking for a police representative to be a subject matter expert and a fire representative to be a subject matter expert to give, to kind of be there to help us understand as we work through these problems. So again, this resolution will not be sent to the General Assembly tonight. It is to be sent to a study commission that will be created if it passes. So again, I will ask for a motion to send it to that new commission. Hopefully this item will bring us all together, and we won't be playing partisan politics. We'll just look to make things better for safety. With that, I will open the docket for public hearings. I have a list, so we'll go by the list. Gretchen Dingle, 27 Perennial Road. Good evening, Gretchen.
Good evening. Good evening, President Farina and City Council members. I'm here to talk about the proposed resolution to ensure gun safety in schools. I want to commend you all for taking action in light of recent events. While this is a hot-button topic with many varying opinions, it's the safety and well-being of students, teachers, and administrators that need to be at the forefront and the main focus of this discussion. I support the resolution as it is set forth, urging the General Assembly to take measures to protect school children. It's a well-thought-out approach to strengthen security in all schools, touching on many points: access to schools, additional safety officers, intervention, and confidential reporting. However, it's critical to immediately implement the safety measures that are in the City of Cranston's control. All points you've outlined can be accomplished at the city level. The safety and well-being of students, educators, and school administrative staff is too important. We cannot and should not wait for the General Assembly to take action. Gun violence in schools is becoming too prevalent. While we're seeking ways to protect schools, we must also be seeking to understand the root cause. The issue isn't just about keeping guns out of school and intervention of troubled teenagers. It's about starting early. It's about how young children are being taught, mentored, and guided from an early age. Beyond tangible changes such as ensuring gun safety, the challenge becomes more complex. Class size, school size, mental health resources, and availability of courses of study that encourage emotional and moral development, such as humanities, are also part of the equation. I urge the City Council to focus on addressing the root cause of gun violence in schools in addition to the measures outlined in this resolution. It's a very good start, but there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Pauline DeRosa. And as usual, Pauline, name and address for the record.
Pauline DeRosa, 97 Cypress Drive. Good evening, council members and Council President Farina. I would like to thank Councilman John Loney, first of all, for originally sponsoring the resolution urging an amendment to the general laws to ensure gun safety in our schools. The Second Amendment reads as follows: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Some believe this language has become obsolete or irrelevant. That may be true in terms of modern times and the world we live in today. Our discussions are not about the 18th century farmer who needed to use a musket to protect his family and property from government troops. Rather, here in the 21st century, we are talking about the ever-present threat in our society, the proliferation of the automatic weapon, not the musket. We must make every effort to protect our students within the walls of our schools in the state of Rhode Island. No individual with a concealed carry permit should be allowed access within a school building unless that person is an authorized member of law enforcement. Schools should be a safe haven where students can learn, thrive, and go on to become productive citizens of our society. In addition, arming teachers should not be an option. We must not give the responsibility to any teacher or instructor to make a split-second decision whether to fire his or her weapon and take the life of a shooter or by accident a student, an act that can never be taken back. All the initiatives listed in the resolution are appropriate. In addition, we ought to focus on educating our teachers, students, and the public, and the general public in recognizing the signs of at-risk behavior. This is a subject in which all of us can learn and be engaged in. adequate funding must be appropriated for these plans to be effective. We must keep pressure on our local and state officials to support the swift and complete ban of the AR-15. Until that time, we must do everything in our power to protect our children from those who would harm them with this weapon of war. Thank you.
Janice Ruggieri.
Thank you. Janice Ruggieri, 45 Overhill Road. I've just come from a district leadership meeting tonight regarding the renovation, repair, and rebuilding possible of all of our school buildings, to which members of this body, as well as the mayor's administration and city administration, were invited. I'm hoping that maybe at the next meeting we'll get some representation. It's important to have all bodies, interested parties at these meetings. This is part of the community-based work being done to ensure that we are able to provide 21st century learning environments for staff and students. This was the first of many meetings designed to make improvements for learning, accessibility, opportunities, community growth, safety, and security in the school buildings. I think it's important to mention because there's work already being done to improve safety at our buildings, and I would hate to see duplication of efforts, as that's a waste of time and money. I'm here tonight to speak about several resolutions regarding the schools and safety that various council members are proposing tonight. Safety, security, and the well-being of all of our students and staff are concerns for all of those involved, but I do not believe that there is one path to improvements. The school department over the last few years has made significant improvements in safety with our underfunded budget requests received and our non-existent capital budget funding over the past 10 years. Plans have been made, but will take time with the available funds. Currently, schools are monitored by video cameras, employees have badges and fobs to let them through secure doors, and visitors to buildings have to be buzzed in. Of course, we know that this does not prevent people from holding the doors open, but we continue to educate people about this. The district also has police resource officers on duty and has been a partner with the Cranston Police Department conducting student and staff training for 6 years. This training has been amazing, and the officers involved have been wonderful partners within the school community, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them. Now, this is not to say that things cannot be improved, but this needs to be done in a thoughtful and detailed manner that includes all parties. I was happy to see that the council was taking an interest in the state of our buildings, and Mr. Farina and I, Council President Farina and I had a conversation because we were disheartened to learn about it over social media and through the paper. But he did apologize, and that will not happen again, so we'll move forward from there. What I am a little bit concerned about, I applaud the intent of this resolution, and I'm happy to hear that the resolution, as it was written and presented prior to this evening, is not going directly to the General Assembly. I was told that this resolution is a framework for the subcommittee. What I found a little confusing to that is why you would have a resolution on the docket to vote as worded if this was not the resolution that was actually going to be sent to the General Assembly. I did ask that this resolution as worded be tabled until the work could be done from the committee that's going to be set up. And then once the complete and properly worded resolution was presented to the committee, it would be voted on and then actually sent to the General Assembly to enact some change. I don't really know what Mr. Arquette is going to be speaking about, so I cannot address my concerns about his points tonight. I also believe that the resolution that Councilman Lanning has tried to put forth to the committee for over a year now was one that the school committee passed over a year ago and finally should be discussed and addressed by this committee. To state that the reason that you did not vote on it was because there was nothing similar at the General Assembly seemed odd to me because none of the items that are in this resolution are currently at the General Assembly. And when this resolution actually was originally proposed, there was legislation being proposed, which is why it was brought forward to the City Council as it was brought to the school committee at the same time. The language of the resolution put forth tonight by the majority of the committee, in my view, is too vague and could wind up costing the city millions of dollars just in metal detectors alone. Just as an example, just one of our schools has 5 buildings. And in one of those buildings, there's about 15 doors. Now, I'm not sure what is meant by public access, and I'm not sure what you mean by access as far as, can anyone get in? Is it locked from the outside? Is it locked from the inside? So that was a question that I had. Aside from the cost, there's logistics for usage during the day, events, who monitors. These are all questions that I feel need to be asked and answered before this resolution can move forward. In addition, I felt that there were no other options to improve safety and security aside from those revolving around weapons written in this resolution. We need other options for mental health care, for social issues that reflect our society today. I don't feel that this resolution is detailed enough or fully conceived to send to the legislature or to even be voted upon as it stands. I'm happy to hear that this resolution has now been added on to another resolution to be sent to subcommittee, but I would request that as it is worded tonight, it be tabled so that the subcommittee can do their work, then we vote on a good resolution that has all answered questions and everything settled so that you can move that actually forward to enact some change with the support of the entire council. I mean no disrespect when I'm standing up here talking to you. I think that we all need to work together on this, and I am looking forward to working together on this. We have built a decent relationship with the city council over the years, and I don't want anything to jeopardize that at this point, especially with this major issue that really hits home for all of us. We need to do something, and it's not just in this community, it's in every community, and I'm hoping that we can move forward from tonight to do that.
Stephanie Culhane. Name and address to the record.
Stephanie Culhane, 13 Branch Avenue. Good evening, everyone, and all guests that are here tonight. So I'd like to first say thank you for the council's interest in school safety. As Mr. Fazicchio had said in his comments in the Journal, he has been working on some type of safety plan for the last several months. So I'm certain that you've all discussed this in some shape or form, and if you haven't, I hope that you will understand. Cranston Public Schools has been addressing school safety since Sandy Hook. That is many, many years ago. In fact, I'm certain you well know, and if you don't, you should, that at every single executive session meeting that we have listed an agenda item, which is district safety. One of the reasons why it's listed as an agenda item is because while the public may not like to hear this, the public should not be privy to everything that's going on when it comes to school safety and security. That's a recommendation that doesn't come from the school department, but that comes from the police officers who work with us on ALICE training, something else you should all know about. We've been working on ALICE training in the schools. If you don't know what it is, you can Google it, or the police can also discuss it with you. We have an ALICE team at Cranston Police Department. They work with our administration, with our students, with the families, and with the teachers to have yearly safety training in place in case of an active shooter. And again, we initiated this after Sandy Hook. So I think it's important for you all to understand, before you undertake something of this magnitude, the Cranston School Department, who in fact has the care and control of the school buildings, all 26 and 11,000 students in it, has already been fervently working on this. I'd like to commend Councilman Lanny, not something that you and I say often about each other, but thank you so much. Councilman Lanny took it upon himself over a year ago to bring this resolution to all of you. The Democrats voted for it. The Republicans voted against it. So, Councilman Farina, while you're talking about partisan politics, let's go there for a moment. I was shocked and dismayed when sitting and watching the 11 o'clock news on Friday night to find out that this council was going to be sponsoring a resolution that directly affected the schools that I helped to control, that I've been elected by the people for the last 10 years to have the care and control of. I'm very dismayed that we were never contacted, and even though I reached out to you through text, I didn't really get a response when I asked if this resolution could be tabled. As I said earlier, you can't involve the public of every aspect, but we can involve the public in many things. My son is 10, and he said to me today, "Mommy, I would be afraid to walk into my school with metal detectors, or knowing that there's guards at the door with big guns. That would frighten me." We don't want these safety measures to be frightening to our children. We need to remember they're what's at stake here. They're what's important. I think that it's important to note that, again, the school committee did pass the resolution to ban concealed weapons in schools, save for police officers and those who are law enforcement officers entrusted with carrying weapons. I think that it's important to note that we want to work collaboratively. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. We shouldn't have Democrats voting against Republican resolutions and Republicans voting against Democratic resolutions when it comes to the safety of our children. But I implore all of you, this resolution, though well meant, was not exactly well thought out. Mr. Vivicchio had also made a comment that the reason why he didn't vote for Mr. Lanny's resolution about concealed weapons was because there was no corresponding bill at the General Assembly. Well, in fact, there was, and I would be hard-pressed to believe that you would pass this one tonight, because if you are, then you're going against the same reasons why you didn't vote for Mr. Lanny's. There's no bill at the General Assembly for any of what's mentioned tonight. So I would implore you, and I think some people behind me are also imploring you, do what's best for the city of Cranston, table the resolution until the subcommittee can meet, as you said, discuss it, make some really good fervent plans together as a team, nonpartisan team, and do what's best for the children, not what's best for palm cards in November. Thank you.
We have a sign-up sheet, Mr. Davis, so I believe Debbie Flitman is next.
I was out there. I didn't realize there was a sign-up sheet.
Then when we get to the end, we'll get you. Name and address to the record, Ms. Flitman.
Hi, I'm Debbie Flitman, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Rhode Island ACLU. I'm a board member of the ACLU and a proud member of the ACLU for the last 10 years. And I'm here to address Michael Farina's proposed resolution. I'd like to state publicly that the ACLU appreciates the goal of ensuring safety of our children in public schools. We're also aware that this is purely a resolution and that it has no binding impact. So regardless of whether or not this passes tonight, well, of course, you've changed your determination much earlier. The resolution was going to be a mooted point anyway. The ACLU has been asked by members of the media and by members of the public to make a statement. So I'd like to go on record with the ACLU stating that, in part, I know that all of you have received a copy of their statement in your email inbox today. If you haven't, I have extra copies here. The resolution's proposals do little to address the issue that drive gun violence. Instead, it has the potential to harm civil liberties, something that should not be taken lightly here tonight. The resolution calls for metal detectors and armed officers in our schools. Recommendations like this have an impact on the school environment. When schools start looking and acting like prisons, they will undoubtedly have an influence on our students and not necessarily make them safer. Two incidents that have come to mind are Columbine and the most recent site of gun violence in Parkland, Florida. Both of these schools had armed officers on the premises. Sadly, we know that armed officers in both of those instances could not and did not prevent the tragedies. For these reasons and others listed in the written statement sent to you, the ACLU encourages you to reconsider this proposed resolution and look for ways to make our schools safer without militarizing our schools or infringing on the civil liberties of our students, because they all matter. Thank you for allowing me to address the council and our community.
John, Patrick, Don, and the last three letters are kind of condensed, so if you could name and address the record.
Yeah, sorry. John Patrick Donegan, 60 Packard Street, Cranston. Council members, Council President Farina, I appreciate this topic has finally come up to the council, but honestly, it's far too late. Councilman Lanny's resolution has sat in committee for 9 months, while you all refuse to even anyone in committee to second it so it could come here. It took the death of 17 children in Florida for this to finally come to an honest discussion before the entire council. I think that your resolution means well, it's well intended. However, I think it falls short of being realistic. Do our schools even have armed officers at every school so far? How are we going to pay for this? I appreciate that it's going to go before a special committee where it can be further vetted. I think that's what we need. We need these conversations to be public and not be done behind closed doors. I think the city has so much potential, and it's best when we come together, when the school committees, the fire department, the police officers, the teachers' unions, they all come together at one table. So I do appreciate you taking that measure. But again, I think it's far too late. I think that Councilman Laney's resolution should be passed tonight, and that we should do everything we can to make our schools safer.
Pauline Bilal. Good evening, Pauline. Name and address to the record, please.
Good evening, sir. Pauline Bilal, 74 Gordon Street, Cranston. So I'm here tonight. I speak to children every day. It's something that I do, particularly teenagers. This week I've spoke to over 185 teenagers. They're your children. I would really appreciate if you would just pay attention to what I'm saying now. Thank you. So I've watched tonight as you have shuffled your papers, as you have looked down while the rest of us speak. This is an issue that every single one of us is obviously serious enough to stop what we're doing and be here tonight. 185 students spoke to me today. All week, I've listened to their comments, I've taken their emails, I've listened to their texts, I've listened to their fears. They do not want guns in their school. They do not want to walk around a militia environment. What you need to do when you come to the table and all of you guys get together and start discussing this, you need to involve us parents and you need to involve these students. It is their school. They are the ones who will be walking in these hallways with these armed guards, with these armed teachers who are not ready to fight with a gun on a moment's notice. Thank you.
Thank you. But for the record, I do take notes as people speak to write down what they say so I can keep those comments for later, so as we discuss things, I know what was said. But thank you, Ms. Bilal, for your comments. Paul Roselli, you're up next, sir.
Thank you, Council President. Paul Roselli, 665 Maureen Circle, Mapleville, Rhode Island. As a candidate for a statewide office, I get the opportunity to go across the state to see just how democracy works. It's chaotic. It's at best. It's a lot of fun, and it usually resolves things usually from stakeholder input, and that's what I want to bring tonight, the sense of stakeholder input. Families, children, school principals, vice principals, all need to be involved in this situation. Democracy works in strange ways, and I can tell you from personal experience, whether it be a power plant or healthcare system, that the essence of that body politic, the way it works and should work well, is by stakeholder input. You need to involve as many people as possible into this issue. There's no substitute for it. The dedicated men and women from Moms Demand Action and the whole host of other organizations have to be involved in every issue that relates to schools and gun violence and the issuance of resolutions, whether it be for metal detectors or armed guards. That's your duty. That's our duty here, behind these walls, to make sure you keep your duty intact. Thank you for your time, Mr. Council President.
Thank you, Paul. Nancy Vituli. Good evening, Nancy.
Good evening. I have to to state my address?
Yes, please, name and address for the record.
Nancy Vituli, 196 Knollwood Avenue. Good evening, council members and council president Farina. All I want to say is that I obviously understand the need for school safety and I recognize the value of school resource officers. I've been a teacher at Cranston West for 23 years and I cannot support additional concealed guns and lock boxes in our schools. Thank you.
Emily Grady.
Hi, I'm Emily Grady, 4 from Crest Avenue. I'm not going to say much because I agree with many of the points that have already been made. I just want to emphasize that I find it upsetting and confusing that we're talking about turning our kids' schools into like militarized zones before talking about taking guns out of schools that would be free and simple, and that's it.
Thank you, Emily. Tim Leinert. Good evening, Tim. Name and address for the record, please.
137 Blackamore Avenue. Thank you, Council President. I have 2 kids in the Cranston schools, one at Parkview and one at East, and I support Councilman Lanny's resolution, which unfortunately could not get out of committee for a year. It was very specific about banning concealed weapons from the schools. I don't support this more comprehensive resolution, mostly because it's statistically unlikely we're going to have a mass shooting here. This gets a lot of attention, but it's a very small portion of overall gun deaths. It's the incredible number every day from accidents, from homicides, from suicides, which results from the easy access to guns. And I think if we have armed guards in the schools, it's more guns, it's more probability of accidents, somebody mistaking somebody's gesture, shooting too soon, mistaken identity, kid, anybody else getting hold of that gun. Generally speaking, the more guns are present, the more likelihood of gun deaths. So I think we should work on getting the guns out of the schools and not put more guns into the schools. I don't think we've seen I think we've seen in Florida and elsewhere that the idea that a good guy with a gun is going to neutralize a bad guy with a gun just doesn't work. So let's not go down that path. But I do appreciate that the interest that this has gotten and that the council members, I'm sure will, in the committee, will consider all of these factors. So thanks.
Susan Hodgen. Apologize if I said that wrong, Susan.
No, that's great. Thank you. Susan Hodgen, 108 Betsy Williams Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this issue, and thanks for you wanting to do something about it. I'm a school teacher, including 15 years in the Cranston system, and I spent this past Saturday canvassing in Ward 6 on the issue of what our elected officials should be doing about guns in our schools and in our society. I talked to approximately 40 voters and residents. An overwhelming majority of them, about 85%, are skeptical of your proposed resolution of armed officers, locked boxes, and metal detectors. Rather than ask the General Assembly to require things we can't afford and don't want in our public schools, why not take the simpler approach of asking Rhode Island to ban concealed handguns in schools, like 40 other states do already? We've been asking you to do this since last year, but you wouldn't even vote on it. Now, after the latest tragedy in Florida, this resolution is woefully inadequate and misguided. It's not real change. That's what I heard from the people in Ward 6 this weekend. They want you to stop making excuses and put pressure on our state officials, including House Speaker Nick Mattiello, who lives in Cranston and says he listens to his constituents. Let's talk about strengthening background checks, raising age limits on gun purchases, and limiting large capacity ammunition rounds and easy access to military assault weapons. These are common sense reforms that have nothing to do with infringing on the Second Amendment. How will a strapped school committee be able to fund metal detectors for 23 schools? How long will it take over 1,000 high school students to walk through every morning? Who will will supervise and search students when the buzzer goes off? Who will be in charge of the lockboxes for concealed carry weapons? How much money will it take to hire one, sometimes two armed law enforcement officers for each school? Will they be present for after-school activities and clubs and evening music concerts? Or will those students at those events just have to take the extra risks? Do you know how scared children are now with indoor safety drills and Alice training? I do. I have to do it with them. This is a paragraph I wrote before I heard your most recent plan tonight, but I'm going to read it anyway. If you're going to appoint a study committee, please include a fair mixture of political parties to ensure a true and open debate on this issue. Your actions concern me as I look at how the Ordinance Committee stacked the deck against the No Weapons in Schools proposal last year, so there wasn't even a second Democrat able to second the resolution to bring it to a vote for the full council. I sat here for 2 of those no votes. And here you have 5 Republicans who apparently got together in secret to craft this new resolution with no input from the Democrats on the council. Instead of posturing that you're taking action when you have no funding or authority to put your suggestions in place, please consider leading the way in local government to make real change in the ways that guns are in our lives in 2018. In my door-to-door discussions in Garden City neighborhood this past Saturday, most people, including one member of the NRA, agreed that gun money should stop funding political campaigns. I do believe in the Second Amendment, but its language of a well-armed militia made of muskets in the 1700s is incongruous with the millions of military assault weapons for sale today to 19-year-olds that our government thinks are too young to buy a beer. Changes can be made without taking away the rights of people to hunt and participate in recreational shooting. Why are you in public office if you're not willing to take on the tough issues and stand up for necessary changes to save lives? You were elected to serve the people, not the gun lobby.
Joseph Bucci.
Joseph Bucci, 11 Amalia Avenue, Cranston. I've been a resident of Cranston for 57 years. Council members, the answer isn't to arm teachers. They have enough to worry about without having to take their lives into their own hands. Asking to arm a teacher is like saying, I need a carpenter, so I'm going to ask this mason to train as a carpenter. No, you just get a carpenter. We already have police. We don't have to have armed guards in the schools. We have police substations in the drug areas of the state. We can have them on school grounds, maybe like 1 or 2, in a certain area. I don't believe kids are going to be traumatized by metal detectors. They're not traumatized when they go to a football game with their dads. They're not traumatized when they go with their parents into a federal building, and they're not traumatized when they go to a rock concert. As far as like this red flag resolution, I don't believe you can use human emotions as a parameter to make law, because what doesn't set somebody off one day may set somebody off another day. I may go to get a gun today, and they give it to me, and in 6 months I lose my job, my wife, my kids, and I go over the edge. The criteria it seems that they're going to use for this is, are you a danger to yourself or others? Well, people that already have guns and mental problems, are they going to conduct door-to-door psychiatric tests? What about people who have illegal guns? Search and seizures? this could be a slippery slope. I believe there was, on Channel 10 News last week, they did a story about the safest school in America, which is in Indiana. The doors are bullet resistant. They have fog machines that, look, if we have to metal detect, yes, this all costs money, but our children are worth it. We fortify other venues. There's guards in banks, maybe a public-private partnership to get all the schools up to snuff would work. But at the same time, and I am a conservative, there is no reason why anybody needs an assault weapon. There was also a story on the news last night about a woman who owned a liquor store, and somebody came in to try to rob the store. She drove that perpetrator off with a pistol. Damn fine job. He left the store. He was apprehended. Nobody needs an assault weapon except the military. The Second Amendment is a wonderful thing. It's not just to protect ourselves, it's to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government that could develop. I mean, given human nature, you never know. But nobody needs military-style weapons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bucci. Tom Wojcik. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Tom Wojcik, 11 Hall Place, Cranston, Rhode Island. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I think you probably can recall that I've been speaking to you about this issue for over 2 years, prior to you being council president. I want to thank you for finally putting this on the docket and creating discussion. I'm hoping that you are not cynical or that you really intend to have this discussion open and that you include all parties. It was, I thought, a failure of leadership when I saw that it was only 5 Republicans that put this resolution. I'm sure that there are many Democratic parents that are concerned, as well as Republican parents. And I think it's unconscionable that you would restrict conversation on this. The other thing is that in work that I do with organizations, we talk about culture. And there's a saying, you may have heard it, that culture will eat strategy every day for lunch. I thought your proposal, your resolution, was made up of a lot of strategies. And it never really addresses the core issues, which is we have a culture of guns. I also felt that your proposals were defensive in nature, and that you were really not taking into consideration the emotional and psychological burden on our children, teachers, school administrators, and police, as well as the financial burden of every Cranston citizen to put forth and put your strategies in place. I also wondered about some of these things that seem to be more reactive than well thought out. And I'm hoping when you say that we really are concerned about this, that you really will take the time to think this through. I liked what you said about, making the committee fuller, but I would encourage you to bring Second Amendment people on. I would encourage you to bring representative from moms. I would encourage you to bring Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence on. And I think not only should your committee meet, but you should have open hearings. This is an issue, if you are really deeply concerned, if it's a hard issue and not just a political feel-good issue, that's what you will do. The other thing that it was amazing to me that you guys would think that you would cavalierly ask every child, parent, administrator, and teacher to give up their right and have to walk through a metal detector. But you wouldn't put in there that you'll ask for universal background checks. Who's more important to check? The people who are buying guns or our children and teachers? Why isn't your resolution to ask for universal background checks instead of metal detectors? Why aren't you supporting an assault weapons ban? Why isn't your resolution doing that? That's going to be introduced this week. You could take a vote tonight and say, we are in support. We really do care about our children. We really do care about our teachers and administrators. We're going to sign it. We're going to put forth a resolution tonight, get it over to the state tomorrow as they introduce the assault weapons ban. If you really did care, you do that. Lock boxes don't mean anything. Now, the issue of banning concealed weapons in our schools, I've been talking about that for 2 years, and you guys have stalled, stepped on it, delayed it, pushed it into ordinance committees, wouldn't have committee sponsorship so we could even get a vote on that. So I don't want to hear about that. You guys have had the opportunity. It's really shameful what you did with that, and then all of a sudden pop up on a Wednesday and say, we're for all this. Where have you been? Where have you been? I urge you, if you really feel about this, if you really do care about the students, if you care about the soccer team, if you care about the star football player, if you really do care about those teachers, then take those actions. Ban concealed weapons. Ask for universal background checks. Support the ban on assault weapons. Also support the restriction on high-capacity magazines. You know, if you continue to harden our schools and make them minimum security prisons, think about this when you come with all your things. If I'm someone who is intent on killing children, and if for some reason you harden the schools so well that I can't get in, the other day I was driving down past the school, bad timing because school was getting out. All the children were lined up on the street waiting for their bus. I don't have to get into school to use my AR-15 if I want to kill 30 people. That makes no sense. Do you think that's going to stop someone that wants to kill? Please, think this through. We all want to help you. You're right. We don't want to make this political. A lot of the people here have been talking to you for 2 years. We want it for our police department. We want it for our community. We want it for everyone. It all matters. Do this seriously. Do it with heart. Show some leadership this time. Thank you.
Orgia Koziala. I don't know if I said that right. Name and address for the record.
It is Angie Coziera, 11 Hall Place, Cranston. Good evening. I want to say that people before me have made a lot of good points, so I'm not going to go over those. Especially coming from the teachers and points about parents. I just, though, want to congratulate the people who came up with this proposal, that they haven't done anything. I've been sitting quietly for at least a year coming to some of these meetings, and they've ignored, I guess I should congratulate them on that, that they've ignored Councilman Lanny's proposal, but now they have their own. And their own seems to propose a mini prison. So I'm gratified that you are having a committee to look at this, because you certainly need to look at this. And I want to make a point as a mental health licensed social worker that kids do get anxious about these things. Teachers have made that point. I want to make a point as a mental health clinician. They get very anxious about a lot of things that just go on in school. To add lock boxes and going through scanners and all kinds of things is not going to help them to learn at all. It may just give business to people who are in mental health. If you really are concerned, I think you need to listen to many of the points that have been brought up, and that it is not just the NRA and guns behind the Republican clothing. We want guns out of the school, not in the school.
Good evening, Douglas. Name and address to the record, please.
Douglas Doe, 178 Lippert Avenue. For a completely different subject, I'd like to thank the council for putting National Grid and the interconnection process on the next agenda for the Public Works Committee, meeting March 15th. I've been trying to get information on National Grid for months. It's like talking to a black hole. So I hope they bring their experts. I don't want to hear from lawyers. I'm tired of hearing from lawyers on these issues. Hope National Grid comes in and tells us what they're going to do in Western Cranston, what kind of improvements they have to make, how big are the poles, what kind of power lines they're going to be stringing up. If you go out Leighton Night Road, Pope Road, Lippert Ave, you'll see the new surveyor stakes. Those mark all the new telephone poles that they have to put in, plus the poles they have to replace. These poles are much larger. I'm told the tree clearance is 20 feet. And this may sound very technical until somebody shows up with a tree truck to cut down your 100-year-old oak tree because it's in the way of your power line. And it becomes very personal for those people. I talked to one person walking her dog on Leighton Night Road. She had no idea what those stakes were for. So hopefully we'll get some answers on the 15th. I think we need to discuss, we should have discussed this 2.5 years ago, but what is the build-out capacity for solar in Western Cranston? Can National Grid's infrastructure handle this? If not, what are the upgrades going to look like? What are they going to do to the atmosphere of Western Cranston? We're trying to preserve the rural atmosphere and the rural view of that place. We're stringing up brand new power lines all over these streets. And we need to look at it very carefully, so National Grid comes with answers. And I don't know if you've seen the Cranston Herald this week. There's a new article, Sunrise in the West. It's about the solar projects out there. Unfortunately, it's got quite a few inaccurate statements in it, especially because it goes on the front page above the fold. It says Hope Road project is in operation. It hasn't even been built. It's still a cornfield, thankfully. They mentioned Confederate farms might be developed into hundreds of houses. That land is protected state land. Now, the state bought the development rights in 3 transactions back in 88, 90, 93, protecting 225 acres at a cost of just under $1.9 million. So I'm not sure why the new planning director thinks they can build on that. But he also mentioned, just briefly, he mentioned this whole project is to preserve the land. Well, maybe they blew it up, literally. They had 8 days of blasting. They ran a gravel quarry business for over 2 months. They just finally shut it down. They're running rock crushers all day long for weeks on end. The gravel trucks are still running nonstop. I was home on Friday afternoon. I counted 13 trucks leaving the site in 1 hour. That's just 1 hour in 1 day out of weeks. And Peter LaPointe told me I would never notice the traffic when I raised that issue years ago. I mean, the lack of understanding of what these projects are going to do to Western Cranston is immense. And it needs to change. You know, I've offered to invite anybody who wants to come out and do a site visit. I've had one public official come out. That's it. And he doesn't work in this building. And it's just a sad statement that no one wants to come out and look at what's happening. until the mayor comes out with his golden scissors to cut the ribbon. I wish somebody would come out earlier. I wish some of you would come out anytime. But at least before this meeting on March 15th, take a ride out to Western Cranston, drive down Hope Road, Lippert Ave, Leighton Knight Road, and see all those new stakes. And see all the nice big trees right next to those new stakes that are all going to disappear. Because no one thought of talking about this issue. Our planning department never thought of talking about this issue. And every time I raised it in a meeting, the planning commission, the answer was, National Grid handles that. Now, can you imagine if somebody wanted to build a Costco next to Chapel View, and somebody says, well, what do you do with all the traffic in the streets? And they said, oh, DOT takes care of that. What would happen? You wouldn't accept that answer. But we've done that out in Western Cranston because it's just electricity and power lines. They're going to have a devastating impact on the atmosphere of that rural area, which we're supposed to be saving according to the comprehensive plan. So, thank you.
Melissa Jenkins.
Melissa Jenkins, 135 Arnold Avenue. So let me see if I've got this straight. We've been asking for a resolution for the past year called No Guns in Schools. We've spoken in favor of this, we've called and written to you and to the local papers. And instead you offer us a resolution called More Guns in Schools to install armed guards in every school. It's not an original idea. It was just endorsed a few days ago by Wayne LaPierre, the CEO of the NRA, who described it as the only thing that can be done to keep schools safe. He also refused to leave the stage until he uttered, "To stop a bad guy with a gun, it takes a good guy with a gun." The problem with this line of thinking is that it's wrong. We'd love to think that bad situations could be prevented if there was just a good guy on duty. A well-trained police officer, for example, like there was on February 14th at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, where 17 students and teachers were killed. The police officer was outside, of course. Armed guards were also on duty at Columbine in 1999, and there was a rush to increase their use after that incident because we reasoned that there weren't enough police on duty to be in the exact right place at the right time. So we continue to do this thing that doesn't work. In fact, school safety officers are not armed with automatic or semi-automatic weapons, so they're no match for a shooter that is. A shootout without hitting any students is unlikely. Even fully trained police officers hit their targets less than 50% of the time. But hey, we feel safer if they're there, right? Actually, no. Students do not feel safer having armed guards at their schools. I asked my nephews how they would feel about attending schools with armed guards, and JJ, who's a 12-year-old 7th grader, said, "Scared. It would make me feel like it's not safe to be there, and if it's not a safe place, why are you sending me?" Armed police are scary, not just to shooters, but to children. There's reason to be afraid. Students in schools with police officers are more likely to be criminalized for misbehavior. There are more arrests for low-level offenses like disorderly conduct when you place police in schools. Between 2011 and 2016, there were also 87 instances documented of officers using stun guns on children for a range of behaviors. As you might imagine, different demographic groups don't get arrested in equal numbers by school-based police. Black children, who represented 16% of school-aged children in 2012, were arrested at school 31% of the time. And these incidents leave lasting impressions. Students arrested at school are more likely to drop out, and they're more likely to be unemployed later. So putting police officers in schools is a page right out of the NRA playbook. It provides no documented increase in safety and has a significant downside of increased fearfulness in our children and criminalization of youth misbehavior with lasting consequences. This is not the right thing to do. The good guy with a gun myth is exactly that. It's a myth. It's a fairy tale told by Wayne LaPierre and the NRA so they can keep selling guns to anyone who wants to buy them. It's okay, we'll just install police with more guns to stop them. If we turn our schools into jails, everyone will be safe. The good guys with guns will outgun the bad guys with guns. The truth is that armed guards placed in schools over the past 20 years have not made schools safer. They have made them less safe. We need to stop listening to the NRA and start listening to the children, including my nephew JJ. He doesn't want to go to a school that feels like a prison. Thank you.
Ramsey, we reached the end of the list if you want to get up.
Thank you. My name is Ramsey Davis. I live at 58 Fordson Avenue since the mid-'80s with my wife. My son has gone through the Cranston School Department. The reason I'm here, as I've stated before, is my grandchild, my only grandchild, our only grandchild who's 5, will be starting school in September. First of all, I want to thank you all for all the hours you do put in. I recognize that. It's a difficult position. You've got to spend endless hours with this job. I understand that. We don't always agree, but I do appreciate your effort. You heard us before. I am a retired teacher. My wife and I have over 70 years of teaching experience. I taught K through 12. I'm also a Vietnam Marine Corps veteran. I carried an assault weapon for a year. I carried a .45. I've seen the devastation that an assault weapon causes to men, women, and children, and we don't want to see it. We do not need assault weapons in our communities. They belong with the military. Thank you so far for your effort with your resolution you've put together. Obviously, you put a good deal of time into it. However, and the however is why I'm here, I disagree with your consideration for a lockbox. I feel that your lockbox consideration is a red herring. It's a distraction. It's a smokescreen, if you don't mind. By supporting this lockbox idea, you are, by default, supporting the concept of concealed carry in schools, at least up to the school activity or the school site. I've got a few questions for you about a lockbox. This resolution is for the whole state. You're suggesting that the state legislature consider this resolution. Okay, so we've got a lockbox for thousands of sporting events across the state. We've got plays, we've got concerts, we've got assemblies throughout the state. Who is going to supervise the lockbox? How are we going to pay for that supervision of those lockboxes? The state, within the last week, announced a need for $250,000 in spending for infrastructure on our schools throughout the state in the next 10 years. That's $250 million for our little state. Now, are we going to take money away from that? We need that infrastructure improvement. You've walked around the schools. You know how these buildings have deteriorated. I have an idea. How about the individual concealed carry weapon holder bolt a lockbox into the trunk of their vehicle and save the rest of us a ton of money? I'm sure that's been done. And here's the crux of the problem. This really identifies the crux of the problem. You want the masses to modify for the needs of the few. We need to reverse that. We need the few to make some modifications to help the masses survive. Earlier today, I was at a press conference with the governor at Warwick and at the same facility in Warwick, where there were hundreds of people. There were 50, 60 law enforcement, fire department, people from across the state, Central Falls, Jamestown, Newport, all over, police officers, chiefs of police, the state, the head of the state police department was there, and she spoke, and a number of them spoke. That was all about the red flag legislation recommendation that was signed by the governor today at that event. But they were all in agreement that no guns in school, assault weapon bans and limiting the magazine count was a good idea. They were all behind those three things. So we're asking the few to modify for the masses. We're not taking away your guns. We're not taking away your magazines. 3 rounds you're allowed for duck hunting. Why are you allowed 30 rounds to hunt children and adults? It makes no sense. You've already heard my example of why concealed carry doesn't work in schools. I told you about the guidance counselor that pulled my emotionally disturbed student and myself into his office and reached into his drawer and pulled out a .45 and started waving it around in a threatening manner. Remember that? That was one of the last meetings. That was a concealed carry permit holder. It makes no sense. That is not what we want to teach our children. Previously, I talked to you about the training by the Cranston Police Department, the Alice training.
We went over 5 minutes, we're trying to give you a chance to speak, so if you could...
You know about Alice, we talked about it, you know about the resource teachers are on. We all grew up with fire drills. Now our children are growing up with active shooter drills. We don't need that. We don't need to turn our schools into mini prisons with scanners and metal detectors and locked doors. And as was mentioned earlier, for what? I mean, you've got the kids lined up after school. We have, in this country, the United States have 4.4% of the world population in this country. But we own 42% of the guns in the world. That's almost half the guns are owned by people in the United States. That's 270 million, I'm almost there, guns in the United States, causing 93 Americans a day dead by guns. We need solutions that serve our children, not the interests of the gun lobby and the minority.
Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Ellen Sasso, 60 Glenmere Drive, Cranston. I served 21 years in the state senate, and I'm coming out of retirement to come to these meetings. It's so very important. I was over in Warwick at one. I've got a son dying of liver cancer, and he's in hospice right now, and I left him to go to work today. That's how important it is. And also, I'm here tonight, and I also was president of the League of Women Voters on the state level, so I've been around a few blocks. And I'm so proud of the people that are here in this chamber. Democracy works, and we better work for democracy. We were going to Florida on vacation, but because of my son's illness, we're not going. I said, if I was in Florida, we have a place in Fort Lauderdale, which is just south of where Parkland is. And I said, I would be there with those kids. They are so smart, so articulate. And people have said, listen to the children. And boy, that's a good thing to think about. Listen to the children. I grew up in the 40s and 50s. I grew up when there was a Second World War, and we had the sirens would go off, and we would have to go in the middle of the school and put our backs against the wall. We were afraid we were going to be bombed. I don't want our kids to feel frightened like we were. We were scared to death that we were going to end up being bombed by the Germans. We lived in the age of innocence. Our poor kids, they don't know what innocence is. We've got to do something to bring back innocence for kids. Their childhood should be free and happy and have a loving time. We don't need kids in schools with guns. And kids with schools that have guns usually are kids that are troubled. Not only troubled, but are ostracized. Usually the kid that doesn't get along with anybody, the kid that's on the outside, looking in, wanting to be part of the gang, and the gang won't have him. We need some more love in our schools. The kid that needs to be recognized by the teachers and by their fellow students.
We need a lot of things in our schools today, but we don't need guns. So I am very proud that this group is here. I'm amazed that so many people took the time to come out. Warwick was the same way. I talked to the mayor of Warwick, and I asked where one of the councilmen was, because he's a friend of mine, and he said, oh, he's a lawyer, he's in court. I said, boo. I said, you know, you can always make an excuse. I said, wait till I see him, he's going to get hell for me. He should have been there, right there in that chamber, listening to the public. And as the public didn't speak, it was the governor that spoke, the head of the state police, and she is a woman, which is wonderful. I was one of the few women in the state senate when I served, and I'm so glad that women are finally coming into their own. And she gave a wonderful talk. There was a policeman from Jamestown that spoke, and it was a different arena. Here you're allowing the public to speak, which is wonderful, and I'm so proud of Cranston. And everybody that got up tonight were articulate, didn't have to have a prepared speech, and if they did, it was well prepared. Cranston is alive and well, and I'm delighted to be here tonight to add my support for whatever the resolution you had, John. I didn't know what it said, but I'm sure it said the right thing.
You did.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Larkin, Parkview Middle School Social Studies teacher and president of the Cranston Teachers Alliance. I represent 1,248 employees, the largest union in this city, the second largest teachers union in the state, and working in the second largest, now we have passed Warwick as far as school districts in this state. And I get your intentions. I do believe that you're all sincere. I've spoken to all of you, and we've interviewed you, and you love children, and many of your relatives work in the Cranston Public Schools. Your children go to Cranston Public Schools. You have daughters-in-laws, daughters, wives, everyone that works in Cranston Public Schools, so I get that. There's not a day that I do not that goes by that I do not think of holding my breath, wondering what is going to happen in our schools. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to pontificate, but it should have stopped a long, long decades ago. There should not be, or maybe Sandy Hook will do it, or maybe this will do it, or maybe that will do it. It should not have happened after the first one happened many years ago. And one of the first ones that was really well publicized was in Kentucky, long before Columbine. And it is a school teacher's and an administrator's nightmare to think about being responsible every single day for all of these children to make the right decision. Now, I will tell you that there's been a lot of criticism of the people and the way they handled the Florida shooting. No one will ever understand what it's like and what you will react to unless you are in the circumstance. So we don't know what that police officer did or didn't do. We don't know what the teachers did or didn't do, or the kids, or they shouldn't have run. It's great to Monday morning quarterback, but you absolutely, for the most part, have no idea what teachers go through today in 2018, on top of being vilified, on top of being called greedy, and on top of all those things, on top of you don't take care of our children, and you don't love enough, and you don't this, and you don't that. That is not the case. Every day, for the most part, we all have people that
in every profession that possibly shouldn't be in that profession. But for the most part, teachers go and they watch over children. And it is very difficult. This is my 36th year of teaching, and never in a million years, even 5 or 10 years ago, would you have told me that I knew the difference between assault weapons, military weapons, not letting people in. We always held the door for people. We can't let them in. I wait for people. As the union president, I teach, but I also go around with Mr. Votto and with the superintendent and go from school to school. There isn't a time that I don't think, why is that man sitting in that car? Why is that person walking so slow? Somebody's coming up behind me. I say, I can't let you in, so you need to go ahead of me. And it is very nerve-wracking. Think about children living like that. Think about the fact that we have to have 4 kinds of drills. Not 1, 4. One that we lock the outside doors, but you can move around. The other one is, we go outside for the fire drill, which now kids are saying, should I go outside for the fire drill? Because in Florida, he pulled the fire drill. So that gets them out, and when another gentleman talked about them lining up for the buses. Then we have a medical lockdown, where we can still teach, but something happened in the building that the kids shouldn't see. So now we have a medical lockdown, but we can still teach. And then we have wall lockdown, which is the Alice lockdown, which means we don't teach, we hide, we close the shades, we shut the lights. And if you can flee, you flee. So if your feet don't fail me now and you can get out because it's for real, then we have to run to the parking lot from Parkview. Our place of safety is St. Matthew's Church. And we have to just say to the kids, we'll meet you at St. Matthew's Church. And then other places then you have, if something goes wrong like Edgewood, you have evacuation drills. Thank God those teachers had all those babies out of that bottom floor and onto buses. And safe when that water rushed in 4 feet high, taller than them. We are under enough stress. And we are constantly being beat up, yet our president wants to give us a bonus if we pack. I mean, he wants to take billions of dollars away from public education, and yet we'll get a bonus if we carry a gun. It does not make any sense. The world is going mad. And the main thing is that, like other countries, we should ban the villain, which is the weapon. And that's what politicians need to do. And I think the scary thing is, which is really wonderful actually, is that a group of students who have lived a lifetime doing all these drills have finally had it. And they are educated, and they're articulate, and they're juniors and seniors, and they want it to end. And they just got $1.5 million dedicated to their cause today. And they're organizing, very carefully, mind you, they're organizing a march on Washington on March 24th. But they're organizing a walkout of students on March 14th. But very carefully, are they out on social media? They don't want anybody to get hurt. They don't want them to get in their cars. They don't want them to go to the State House or the City Hall or the Town Hall. They want them to, with permission, leave their high schools and stand outside and protest for 17 minutes. 1 minute for each life. And that's what they want to do. Now, I've got to tell you, I have a very good relationship with the superintendent. She's an outstanding advocate for the students in this district. We speak all the time. And I have a very good, I would think, relationship with the school committee, open to speak agree to disagree, but we have worked hard. I have spoken to most of you about school issues at one time or another. I said, I was shocked. I was shocked. I'm thinking to myself, wow, no conversation. So I talked to the superintendent. She didn't know. School committee didn't know. I was like, how can this happen? So tonight, there were 4 meetings. This is a very hot night. I had a delegate meeting, which 51 representatives from 27 schools. I had to leave there. I went to a union leadership meeting because we spoke there. And then I excused myself from there because I said I really need to try to get to this, to the city council. And unfortunately, this resolution wasn't really taken too well by the people that I represent, and there was a lot of discussion about it. I think we need to go after what we need to go after and keep the guns out of the schools. And I know I'm using a lot of time, but I have dedicated, this is a vocation to me. I dedicate hours and days and weekends and summers. And I am telling you right now that the people that I represent do not want guns. They don't want to carry guns. We want our children to be happy and feel safe in a place, and the adults have to make that without it being scary. One last thing. The Cranston Police Department has worked extremely close with our school committee and our superintendent and her executive team and the Cranston Teachers Alliance. And we have gone through many trainings, and we have refreshed trainings. It's very sad to have to put children through trainings that somebody might shoot you dead. And that is a really difficult thing. For the younger children, they try to keep it a little bit lighter, but it is really difficult. And they told us, you need to have a bucket. You need to have a strap. If you get the gun away from the intruder, you need to put the gun under the bucket, sit on the bucket, because if you're holding that gun, we may shoot you. So the strap is to hold the door shut. I mean, you just don't have any idea. And then you've got to calm 25, 30 students down. So I'm asking you to rework seriously this resolution, and instead of making us a lockdown, let's see what we can do about moving gun safety in this country, because we are a violent country that's scaring our children.
Angie Howard McParland, 77 Moreland Avenue here in Cranston. I don't need to repeat what everyone has said. You know why we're all here. You've heard it from your residents, from your constituents who live in the city, how disappointed we are, how almost, I mean, it's shameful, I think, the comparison to what's happening here behind closed doors and what's happening out here for all of the residents to come forward and to be talking about this resolution. I want to be convinced, I desperately want to be convinced that as a city council, you have put this forth because you care about our families, because you care about our children. I have a 6-year-old who's in 1st grade at Rhodes Elementary. I have a 4-year-old who will be in kindergarten there next year, and I have an infant who will also go through Cranston Public Schools in the coming years. I will be in Cranston Public Schools for a long time. I will keep coming back about this issue for a long time, and I don't want to have to do that. I can't believe that it's more than political posturing because of the resolution that has sat in committee for 9 months. It doesn't make any sense. And here's the thing. You clearly don't think concealed weapons have a place in schools. And you know how I know? What's with the lockbox? The lockbox is for the concealed weapon before it goes into the school. So you clearly don't think the gun should be in the school in the first place. convince me and convince all of these other families that what you have on your hearts is actually caring for the families, not trying to get reelected by reacting in the way that our president and our society and the NRA has paid everyone to react.
Suzanne Arena, 88 Lakeland Road, Cranston. First of all, one of the things that I've heard tonight, and I've been coming to these meetings talking about my opinion and the resolution, which I was very happy to see that initially was put out. I'm not happy with the one that's changed and put in as well. I wanted to say I don't feel like you're supporting, the council doesn't support our school committee. And what I mean by that is Council President Ruggieri and a member, Cohen, very articulately said that this has been going on a long time. They've been discussing this for a long time. I would think that they collaborate and talk to you and say that these are some of the things as a city that we're concerned about in our schools. So I don't know, I mean, it sounded like she was saying that this is something you've known about for years, that they've been talking about, which I imagine is why you put this in. So I'm really baffled why we haven't done anything, we haven't moved this further. I have to say, my 14-year-old daughter, who has used guns, she knows how to take them apart, she knows that people kill with guns. Guns don't do the killing. I don't feel comfortable having my daughter in a school with people who come in with a concealed weapon. And she's agreed with me there that she doesn't feel comfortable, but she does feel comfortable having an armed police officer there. There's different perspectives. Some of these kids are younger, some are older, from some of the people that I've been hearing. She feels more secure. I come from Boston, and in Boston we have the poor areas. They've had metal detectors in schools for years. You go to the airport, as the other gentleman had said, they're all over the place. They're not that scary. So, it's a perception of parents. We don't want to think that we have to have metal detectors there, but we've progressed, unfortunately. I don't think that we should have guns that have magazines that spray and take people out. I don't think that citizens should have that. But I just wanted to, one more comment is the decision about having teachers have guns really bothers me. Police officers are trained to make split-second decisions, and they have to do it very quickly. They don't shoot their guns all the time, no, but I haven't seen any studies that say not having a police officer who's armed in a school proves that the kids are healthier and happier. Where are the studies to prove one way or the other? There isn't. But I would tell you that right now I would feel more comfortable knowing that my daughter or my son is out of school, or these children are out of school with an armed police officer who has been trained. These teachers have enough stress on their plate. I don't want them to feel that they have to do something like this. That's not what they're there for. I don't support anything like that, and that really bothers me that we would even consider something like that after the union president was talking about. And the last thing I'd like to say, the universal background checks, I think that we need to really be supportive. We should have had all this done a lot sooner. We now have it going before the State House that there is some legislation finally being put in. Why do we have to wait for another city or town or for other legislation by someone else to be put in before we decide that, hey, let's support that, let's do our own? Why should we have to wait? Let's be the leaders. I'm a leader. I don't follow what everyone else does. So I really need to ask you to start looking at things when it's been on your plate for 2 years, I understand. I've only come into this a few months ago. We cannot wait. So let's maybe take the week, maybe by the end of the week. I think tomorrow's a little too premature. You want to get some sleep tonight. But I would ask that you not do a study commission or any kind of more studying and just putting it off. We don't want any more delays. Let's just sit around. I like the idea of having maybe a person from the school committee or the police, somebody from each department, the ACLU, whoever it is, the NRA. Have us all sit down. A good negotiation is where everyone is not happy.
I learned that through when I was going through a divorce. You walk away and you have to make concessions, so everybody has to come to the table. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I have a quick point of information for the gallery. This resolution does not contain anything about teachers carrying firearms in any way, shape, or form. That is not part of this bill. Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Joe Sprimuli, 16 South Comstock Parkway. I'm a resident, obviously. I went to Cranston Public Schools. I'm a teacher. I'm the president of my local teacher association, but I'm really here, and I felt the need to be here tonight because I'm a parent. And last Wednesday, we signed my son up for Orchard Farms. It's going to be kindergarten. He's all excited. But what's going to happen at Big Boy School? It's really kind of upsetting to me to think that part of that day might include explaining to him why there's a metal detector there or a box of guns. And I echo, I'm so, everyone spoke, and I'm just so proud to be a member of this community tonight. And they said a lot of the things I was thinking. But I don't really know, as one gentleman said, well, what about dismissal? And what about this? And what about that? I don't really know that it's going to make us any safer. I don't know that's going to solve the underlying problems, and I really worry about what's next. If we're not addressing the actual problems and these things aren't going to work, well, what's next? And as a teacher, as a parent, I believe and I know that we can do better. That's all.
Good evening, my name is Lamas Vargas. My address is 35 Betsy Williams Drive here in Cranston. I'm a parent of two. One attends Edgewood Highland, the second one attends Parkview Middle School. I just wanted to go ahead and note a couple of dates on here. In September of 2008 in Milwaukee, a 15-year-old female student was stabbed several times in a restroom on the same day a $50,000 metal detector debuted at the school. It was said that the detector was only used for tardy students the day while staff were being trained on using the detector. It was unknown whether the stabbing suspects had or had not been screened. In September of 2008, again, an investigative news story in Cleveland, reporters walked into one Cleveland school multiple times with a hidden camera and found two metal detectors turned off and the school security officers nowhere near the front office. The news story indicated that officials at the school had intentionally not run the detectors to avoid delaying traffic into building. The district security chief, during a subsequent interview, stated the school officer did not follow district standards. The school principal was interviewed and declined to explain on camera. In 2013, a 14-year-old in Atlanta was shot in the neck inside of a school that used them. Administrators admitted the machine were not operable that day. A Minnesota school with a metal detector, guards and fencing was on the site of a mass shooting in 2005 that left 7 people dead. The gunman killed an unarmed security guard wearing the detector, and the other guard fled for their life. I share these examples, points, and questions that I've researched to illustrate that there are many implementations, issues, and questions to consider when discussing potential use of metal detectors in schools. It is simply not an issue of buying the equipment and running the machine, and school safety threats will be eliminated. Too often, the public does not see the complexities associated with operating a school metal detector program, nor they understand that such a program will not provide the 100% guarantee of the school safety they are openly or subliminally desiring or anticipating. I also want to make sure that I highlight the red flags that may come up with metal detectors, and that is a racial tension that will rise, one of which we don't need, especially in this day and age where we're already confronting it. Metal detectors are scary to people of color in different cultures. Some of our students and families come from genocide where metal detectors are just clearly not welcoming. Key point, invest in acquiring resources for mental illness at our schools for our students. Key point, invest in our school infrastructure and professional development for our teachers. Key point, invest in our students and not products. Thank you.
Hi, Carrie Kelleher, 83 Freedom Drive.
I've lived in Cranston for 13 years. It's taken me this long to fully agree with Councilman Lanning on anything, but here we are tonight. I spoke to Councilman Lanning and questioned why in years past he had been against his resolution banning concealed weapons in schools, and John said that there were circumstances in Newtown and his grandchildren that made him rethink things. So I'm taking him at face value and fully support his efforts to get a common sense resolution out of committee, and fighting so hard to do that. And I thank you on behalf of my family and everyone that I know. I'm also trying to spend 2018 as a kinder, gentler version of myself, so I'm going to assume that the other resolutions tonight were also put forward with the truest intentions and not for political posturing. So I know as a parent of kids in this district that we have been very critical of the school committee or the administration or what have you for many different reasons. I can say that after Newtown, the Cranston School Committee took amazing action with, I don't believe, any extra funding. And they looked at every policy, whether it was a dismissal policy, whether it was doors being opened in buildings that are 100 degrees come June, keeping those doors shut to keep our kids safe, whether it was not opening windows in rooms without ventilation to keep our kids safe, whatever they could do, working with the Cranston Police Department, putting Alice into place, whatever they could do with no money to take care of our kids. So I'm glad there was a resolution, which we all know goes to the General Assembly and is basically worth the piece of paper it's put on. Or I don't even know if we email it, maybe then it's worth nothing. So I don't know if I feel better or worse, and again, I'm trying to be kinder and gentler, so I'm going to say better, that we were talking about having a committee. Unfortunately, in the 13 years I've been here disagreeing with Councilman Lanning, I've also seen some great committees formed. I believe there was one on consolidation that was supposed to work between the school department and the city to save tens of thousands of dollars. There's been a lot of committees that were going to work on things, and either they don't meet because everyone's too busy, or they sit around and nothing happens. So I challenge you, if you're going to form a committee, to set a date and set a deadline and actually show up and meet. That would be nice. I'm sure Mrs. Ujiri would have appreciated some city representation at the meeting she was at tonight. But beyond that, there are things you can do as a council right now. Ask the school committee and the police department that they collaborate with and the administration and say, what do you need? Maybe it's money for bulletproof glass. Maybe it's money for more training. Maybe it's to not have to put 0.5 social workers in a building or 0.5 school psychologists in a building. Maybe we increase the funding for personnel or do whatever it is. But just saying we're going to have a resolution or we're going to have a committee is not worth the words coming out of my mouth. Take action, do something. Don't wait for the General Assembly. Don't wait for a committee 6 months from now to decide what we should do. Make a commitment tonight to the 11,000 children in this district to collaborate with the school department and the school committee, who are elected officials just like yourselves, and take action and protect our teachers and protect our students. Thank you.
Name and address to the record. Yes, my name is Richard O'Donnell. I live at 21 Buxton Drive, Cranston. My wife asked me on the way out tonight, she asked me where I was going. I said I was going to go listen to the city council. I haven't been here in a while. I'm a Cranston resident for about 34 years. And the words out of their mouth says, yeah, right. So here I am. I'm at the podium. And I truly believe that I really wanted to sit here and listen to the people here about people's lives and how important everything is to keep our schools safe. And myself, I didn't think that the metal detector was a bad idea. I'm not so sure now, but I still think we have to start somewhere. For me to be labeled, I'm an independent voter. But for me to be labeled as a Democrat or Republican or whoever and say, well, my way is the only way is totally wrong. People have to work together. Now, even though these people are out, this is a good crowd. I used to be part of the Cranston United Taxpayers. Mr. Laney, I think you remember.
I remember.
We stayed here after midnight. We moved the meetings from here to Cranston East. We had marches from here down to Cranston West. They moved it over there for all the meetings. I don't know if you guys want that, but I'm getting the feeling it's going to end up at that point. So, both my kids had education from Cranston West. They did great. The teacher staff was fabulous. I have two nephews. One's about ready to graduate. The other one's still at the Cranston West. You know, so again, I feel for all the people that are in this city, and I think we've done a good job so far. But the issue is being anything, the assault weapons, and of course anything that shoots past 6 rounds. You got to get rid of this. Somehow we got to make a statement here. Every state is different as far as what I can read about gun laws. Every state is different. Rhode Island has probably one of the strictest gun laws in the country, but it's probably not good enough. So that leaves us, especially our police force, a big disadvantage. They're not going to go in there with a pistol or a rifle. They have to go in there with an AR-15 or a military-style rifle to go into a school and hopefully not kill any one of them. Now, I don't think that's such a good idea. Now, we can't make judgment on this person down in Florida. He didn't go inside the school. We don't know if any of those teachers may have been carrying guns. They could be. So he's not going to go ahead and go in there and stop. Now, who do I shoot at? That may be the case. We don't know. We're not going to sit there and label that person as a coward because he didn't go in. Or our president, like he said this evening, if it was him down there, he would have ran that school gun, no gun. I don't know how he's going to do that. He has bone spurs. So, again, it's not to make, funny, but we got to work together on this issue. It isn't, this crowd is too small. This crowd has to get bigger. And again, we just have to do something about this. I think we've been fortunate enough, and every time that something happens around the country, we only do something then. We can't do that. You had Columbine, you had the shooting down in Orlando, we had Las Vegas. Well, bump stock, it's not very accurate. You're shooting into a crowd, it doesn't need to be accurate. Yeah, that's true. The kids come out of school, they're in a bus, they're coming and they're waiting around. Yeah, it's open fire on these kids. But if they can't shoot past 6 bullets at a time, somebody may have a shot to apprehend this person. Not that they don't have a shot at somebody shooting 80 rounds per second, or per minute, or whatever they get. You got to ban all this. And then we want to form your committee, make sure no one's an NRA member. Don't have anybody that's an NRA, because I think it's wrong to begin with. You're going to have people that are just going to have common sense and say, look, forget about our own little personal needs, what we need. We do the right thing for the people. That's who we work for. We do the right thing for the people. Thank you. Anybody else? Name and address. Try to please keep your comments concise.
Jessica Rosner, 107 Betsy Williams Drive. First, I want to thank my Cranston citizens. They are a great group of people. I want to thank Councilman Lanny for proposing his resolution again and again. If this were a movie, you would see the light. And unlike my fellow citizens, I don't believe that you are absorbing any of this. These people have come again and again and again. You have made it a partisan issue. We didn't make it a partisan issue. When I first started coming to these meetings, there were people from both sides. There was eloquence about having guns and eloquence on the other side. You didn't even vote then. You don't have the courage to discuss something, to listen to your people. So what makes you think you have the courage to stop an armed gunman? And as for putting in your hours, all these people put in hours. I've been at work since 8 o'clock this morning.
These people work hard as you do. We voted you to take care of us, to listen to us, to represent us. And you have not done that. You have not done your job. And the only thing that you said tonight is, hey, we never said the teachers had to have guns. That's your takeaway. Not all these other facts and figures and people staying up at night after working all day so that they will be articulate and eloquent and move the needle. You come up with this resolution, this bullshit, which you tried to jam through, and you hope that nobody would notice, but we are paying attention. We are watching you, and we will be voting. So I hope that they are right and I am wrong, and that you do have a heart and you are listening, because so far I have seen no sign of that. Thank you.
Good evening, Nancy Thomas, 38 Buttonwood Drive in Cranston. We come to this room a lot to talk about a lot of mundane things like shopping centers and intersections. And I've never gotten up and spoken, even though I've been behind the scenes a little bit. I have two children that have gone through the Cranston school system, elementary, Weston Hills, Cranston West, URI, Roger Williams. I have a daughter who's a public service attorney, goes through a metal detector, and a police guard at the courtroom every single day. Another daughter who flies out 3 times a week as a corporate executive through the airport with their guards. They were not raised in a home to think that police officers were armed militia, I've heard that, or to be afraid of them, but to go to them and seek help if they needed it. And you know, it's interesting. The other day I was listening to Fox Network, which I don't know how I clicked that, and the father of one of the children in Parkland spoke, and he was being asked about gun control. And the moderator was going on and on about automatic weapons and gun control, and he just about lost it. I don't know if any of you ever saw it. I did post it on my Facebook page. And he said, I don't want to talk about gun control. I want to talk about making our schools safer. Because we are going to talk about gun control, we're going to talk about it nationally, locally, statewide, we're going to have study commissions, we're going to say ban assault weapons. I agree. It doesn't mean that all the assault weapons that are already out there are going to disappear. It doesn't mean that all the guns that are out there illegally are going to disappear. I read a statistic about how many guns are already out in the world. It's something like 4 for every person on the face of the earth, or at least in the United States. It's amazing. The door is open. We don't know how to close it. So we can study, and I think we should. The governor's going to study. The council's going to study. We're going to study all around about what we can do. But I want to focus on making our schools safer. Today, I drove around my daughter's elementary school, and I counted the doors, and somebody's actually put fluorescent numbers on the outside of the buildings. And so I didn't have to count them. They were all numbered. There were 24 doors in elementary school that exit from a classroom to the outside. Some schools, some classrooms have gardens, so I know they're using the doors. Somebody's pointed out to me the doors are locked. Now they have doorknobs on the outside, and if you think of Hope High School has no doorknobs on the outside. And I started to think about my own home, and I said, well, I have doors, and they're locked, and I have doorknobs, but I have alarm systems, and I have security cameras, and I live in Garden City, and it's very safe, and I've always had them and never had a problem. I just think we need to realize the world we're in and take it for what it is right now. And how do we make the schools safer? Is it, and I've actually said this today to somebody, is it a school-by-school security review or audit? Here's this one particular school. What can we do to make it safer? Can we change the doors? Can we have a police officer at the front door? I think there's 1 or 2 police officers that patrol the elementary schools, and I don't know how many elementary schools we have, but it doesn't sound like enough. So I just, again, Waving the magic wand and saying we're going to eliminate guns isn't going to help. 2 days ago, a pre-med student in a library in Massachusetts was stabbed 20 times and killed out of nowhere in a library. Somebody mentioned mental health. I think it came up once tonight. I'm on the board of the Mental Health Association. I think when I left, I counted, I have 54 emails from board members trying to come up with a statement we could all agree on. We're not agreeing yet. We probably have 20 more back there. We have constituents on the board. We have providers on the board. We have mental health professionals on the board, and we don't know what to say. If we say too much, this will stigmatize people with mental illness. They won't get the help they need. I mean, we're just around and around. And we're going to study. And we're going to come out with something fairly soon, I hope. So you're going to study, everybody's going to study, but what are we going to do tomorrow? And I really think that's where we are. And take it where we are in reality. And I wish you all well with it. I think you're all good intention. So thank you.
There's no one else?
Matt Riley, 27 Delwood Road. I did not expect to speak at all tonight, but what I heard scared me. I didn't think I was here for a debate on whether or not guns should be in our society. I thought I was here to hear what we were going to do to keep our schools safe for my kids, for everybody else's kids. I have two daughters that attend currently elementary school in Cranston and will spend their entire childhood and educational career in Cranston. All I heard tonight was about guns are bad, we have to get rid of guns. I don't particularly like guns, I'm not a huge gun guy, but that's all well and good, but that's not what we're here tonight. How are we going to keep our schools safe? I understand through some of the people that were bringing up Mr. Lanny's ordinance that he had brought up that it wasn't voted on. That's fine, let's say it was, and let's say it was put into place. No concealed carry in the schools, great, wonderful, doesn't solve the problem. How are we going to keep shooters out of our schools? How do we protect our students? You know, people don't follow the rules. It's a scary world today, and it's going in the wrong direction. I have to say, it's a scary world. However, what are we going to do to keep our schools safe? And I think that's what this resolution touches on, and I'm very happy that it's finally being addressed. Thank you.
Robert Santuri, S-A-N, T-U, 2 R's and O, 30 Egan Road, Cranston, Rhode Island. Good evening, Council President Farina and other esteemed council members. It's been a while. I just got done working 12 and a half hours, but the legislation that's on the agenda tonight is important enough to come here and listen to what people have to say and to speak about. I have sat in these chambers, as you all can attest to, pretty much every meeting of 2017 here, give or take. And for 9 months, I've watched Councilman Lanny's No Guns in Schools legislation not receive a vote before this body. And tonight it finally will, which is good to see finally. But it should have happened 9 months ago. We could have been having this conversation 9 months ago. Now, I don't know what everyone before me said, but I'm sure it was far more eloquent than I will put this evening. But all that being said, you know, hopefully Parkland can wake up something here for this council and realize that we need to work together to come up with ways to make our schools safer. And before we go ahead and try and tell what the rest of the state to do, we should make sure that our own house is in order. You know, I know that a lot of, Cranston is one of the safer schools. I'm a graduate of Cranston schools. I know they're safe. But I think that we need to not put the cart before the horse. And before we start proposing resolutions, asking the state to do X, Y, Z, we should have the school committee input on input. And I realize that's going to happen with a special committee. But I feel like a lot of the anger and confusion and everything else could have been avoided here tonight if that had happened first. I remember standing here pretty much a year ago to the day saying the same thing about Garden City when that came up, and the same thing about Doric Park when that came up. So maybe going forward, we can reach out to members in the community first and hear what they have to say before putting something on this body. Like, for example, the no guns in school legislation that the school committee, to my knowledge, unanimously passed, that's supported by the Cranston Police Chief, the Rhode Island Police Chief Association, or whatever phrase it is, and many other bodies. So, thank you very much for your time this evening, and I look forward to hearing the discussion on both topics. Thank you.
That in a public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Before we go again, I want to give the stenographer a couple minutes to take a break. He's been typing for about 2 hours and 15 minutes, so we'll give him a little bit of a break. So I'll call a 5-minute recess. Is that enough? 5 minutes? No, 10? 5. Okay, 5-minute recess. Okay. Public hearings I closed before the break. Before we get to resolutions, I'm actually going to create the subcommittee so we have somewhere to send this resolution if the will of the body is to send it somewhere. So I'm going to create a subcommittee headed by Council Vice President Mike Favicchio, as he is also the Finance Chair. I'm going to include one member of the Majority Party, Trent Colford, one member of the Minority Party. I've spoken with Paul Arquetto. He has volunteered to be on that committee. I asked the school committee to align someone. So I'm sure she will email me in the morning with a name. The school administration, again, I've asked the chairman of the school committee to solicit a name from the administration, and I have asked the Director Muskin, to give me a name from the mayor's administration. Additionally, I will be reaching out to Colonel Winquist in the morning, asking him to appoint a subject matter expert from the police force, and Deputy Chief McKenna, asking him to appoint a subject matter expert from the fire department. This will be the core of the committee. I'm sure the chairman may want to add other subject matter experts, whether it be a student, members of the faculty at both schools. We do have a retired teacher in our midst as a councilman who will probably come in as a subject matter expert. The goal with this, again, is to create a collaborative committee to really meet and discuss the issues. With that, I will move on to entertain a motion to send to that new committee a resolution urging an amendment to the general laws and ensure gun safety in schools, sponsored by, it should not just say Council President Farina, it should say Council President Farina, Council Vice President Favicchio, Councilman Hopkins, Councilman Colford, and Councilman Paploskas. Councilman Paploskas.
I'll make a motion to send this resolution to the new committee that was just formed.
I have a motion. Second. I have a second. Under discussion? Councilman Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to make a few comments about this committee, as we've spoken about this a few times. Since late last year, actually, sometime last year, I started looking at all the incidents that have occurred going back to the New Mexico High School, where a 21-year-old student, or a former student, posed as a current student, was able to sneak into a high school and shoot 2 other students. The issue with the Juanita Sanchez School in Providence pointed to a female student letting someone in the door, 2 boys with a gun and pistol whipped someone. I believe there was one in Arizona. We had the New York bike path incident. And we also obviously had this last terrible incident in Florida. But as I looked at these things and looked at, and I will give Councilman Rainey credit for piquing my interest in research. And I've researched quite extensively, probably too much, but I started looking at the Sandy Hook report. The General Assembly did a study in 2014 on behavioral health and guns, which was very, very striking. It also contains many statistics with regard to concealed carry permits. And one of the reasons I was unsure about what Councilman Rainey was trying to propose was that there are only 0.4% of the population of Rhode Island has a concealed permit. That translates into about 3,600 permits. Of that,
25 to 50% are probably retired policemen. And in Cranston, only 346 permits were issued, and of that, probably 20-30% could be retired policemen. So we're talking about a small number. I'm also aware that there are no employees of the school department that have a concealed permit, at least through our police chief. So we're talking about a very, very minute amount of people that could possibly have a gun. No teachers do, to our knowledge. There's a state law, 114760, which says that guns in school, there's no such thing, guns are not allowed in schools. There are only two exceptions, retired policemen or policewomen and concealed carry permit holders. And there are a couple other minor exceptions when you have an event that requires a musket or something crazy. But so 99.6% of Rhode Island residents are prohibited right now from bringing a good gun onto school grounds. We don't have any teachers that have any guns. So the narrow focus of that resolution just seemed to touch nothing. It would do nothing as far as I can see. It would not have prevented any of the incidents that I've looked at with regard to these shootings. They're usually outside external forces, and that's one of the reasons why we looked at possibly the metal detectors. Now, I don't think that every kid is afraid of a metal detector. If you go to a ball game, a hockey game, a basketball game, you go to any large venue, a football game, you're going to go through a metal detector, whether you're 2 or 52. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think that Councilman Leahy's resolution really didn't address the safety issue. It targeted possibly a couple of thousand people in Rhode Island that may have a concealed permit, and there's no basis to assume that they're a threat to our schools. We've not seen anyone. We haven't seen teachers shooting their students. We haven't seen someone with a concealed permit going into a school for that express purpose. The issues that I saw were access to the schools was more of a bigger issue. You can see it right outside this building. You can drive right up to any of these buildings. You could drive a car right through a crowd of people. Any person of that mentality could do that. So I don't think that Councilman Leahy's resolution addressed any of the real major issues. I looked at Ms. Kelleher's public service announcement was very helpful in detailing some of the issues that we face. The issues are extensive, they're complex, and we need a comprehensive analysis. And I've been looking at this for 2 or 3 months, and I wish I had done it sooner. But the focus, I think, of this committee should be to look at current laws and resources that we currently have control of to solve this issue. We can't look to wishful thinking with regard to future laws that might be passed. That concealed law has been proposed many times. It may be back in the legislature this year, may get tabled. So we have to look at what happens if it doesn't pass. What happens if there are no other gun laws passed? I think that our first line of defense is to figure out what we can do with our current resources, and I know that the school committee has done a lot of work in this area, and it would be nice for us to have some participation from them because they'll really be briefed a little bit better. But I envision it to be a fact-finding mission, that experts, we want to have as many experts come forward so that we can get a consensus, or at least formulate some ideas for the full council. We also will look at the use of financial support that we can get from the government, state and federal. We also need to look at what we can do in our new budget, and we can also look at the long-term solutions with regard to this issue. And many of the speakers were correct. We've had a cultural shift. We have become a violent society, and we can't just ignore that fact. We can't say, well, we don't want our kids to see
metal detectors or guns. Well, there's no reason that we can't have plainclothes policemen instead of uniform officers. But I recall when my own kids were at Cranston Public Schools, there were DARE officers, and there was always a policeman around, and they became very good friends with the police officers, and they really helped all the kids, and they were there to assist them. I think kids can become comfortable around police officers, and I think we need to promote that, because we've got such a disconnect and a hatred for law enforcement, and God forbid we need them, and we need them every day. So I think that the idea of this committee is to address these issues on a really nonsensical basis. We want some real solutions to real problems, not feel-good legislation, but do-good legislation and do-good proposals that we can implement, that we have control of. And you know, I thought long and hard, and Councilman Laney, I mean, I have no problem with looking at your concealed carry issue as part of this. I think it's a small part. I don't think it's as big an issue, and I don't think it does much to eliminate the threats. I think we need to assess the threats that currently exist, and that may exist, rather than saying, well, we're going to ban this weapon, we're going to do this, and we're going to take guns out of schools. Well, we have no enforcement procedure at this point. So if you don't have a metal detector or a law enforcement person to really watch who's coming in, you're not going to know whether or not someone has a gun or not. So I think we need to look at this from a common sense perspective, and I think that we can do that, but we just have to look at it in those terms. So with that, I mean, I certainly welcome Councilman Laney, if you want to have that part of this, or if you want to try to vote on it. One caveat with regard to your proposal is that if a retired police officer were to be hired to work in plain clothes at a school, he would need a concealed carry permit, and you would be prohibiting him or her from working in that capacity. That may be a problem, but at any rate, that's the reason for the committee, and I think we're going to keep it compact, concise, and then we will put forth something for the entire council to really address. Thank you, Council President.
Councilman Laney, and then Councilman Stichels.
Thank you. I hope you give me the same amount of time as you gave the Council Vice President. Now I know why lawyers get $300 an hour. First of all, what you're insinuating is the school committee didn't know what they were talking about when they introduced this resolution and sent it to General Assembly. So the school committee, which directly handles the kids of the city, not the city council, they don't know what they're talking about, is what Councilman Vivekio was saying. And this should be incorporated with a few amendments. Well, the city council, everybody knows, is controlled by one party. You can amend this any way you want, and there's nothing I or anybody else can do about it. Just like you buried it in committee for 10 months. Now, when it comes to concealed weapons in schools, during the budget hearings last time around, Colonel Winquist was sitting here, and at that time, Councilman Farina asked him directly, if you got a concealed weapon, what do you do with it if you're going to pick up your kid in school? Colonel Winquist said to him, you put the gun in the glove box locked, and you put the ammunition in the trunk locked. That way you don't carry a concealed weapon to a school. All this resolution is doing is confirming what Colonel Winquist, the head of our police department, thinks is the right thing to do, and told the council president this is how it should be done. A second question, I don't know if anybody in this council has a concealed weapon permit. I know I don't. Maybe somebody who does will admit it. If they don't, fine. Third, I'd like to thank School Committee Chairman Ruggieri and School Committee Person Culhane for their kind comments this evening. They were right on mark when they spoke.
I look at this resolution as not as a cure-it-all. It's not a cure-all for anything, but it's a step in the right direction, a direction that this council did not even want to go in. That is what surprised me, because we have a former member of the school committee on this council and a former school teacher on this council, two school teachers, and nobody wanted to go along with this resolution, even though the NEA supports it, the city and town chairs support it, the police departments statewide support it. Everybody supports it except 5 members of this council.
Councilman Lanning?
Yes, you want to cover you off?
No, we're actually on the first resolution about safety in schools.
Well, he went on a tirade about my resolution, so I'm answering him back. Now, I'll stop it now, we'll continue.
I'll let you go for a couple minutes to answer him, and then I'd like to talk about safety, and then when your resolution's up, you can speak as long as you like.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I will continue. This is a first step. I don't believe in guns in schools, and I don't believe people should have assault weapons. It's my view, and it's the view of many, many people in this city. And I'm representing their wishes, not my party's wishes, not the NRA's wishes, or not any other lobbying group's wishes. Their wishes. And that's exactly what you people should be doing. And I want to say, I told you so. I want to work in a bipartisan manner with all of you. And if we work together as a group, we can accomplish an awful lot in this city. But if we get polarized like we currently are, we're going to accomplish nothing. And a good example of that is this committee. Notice 1 Democrat on the committee, 3 Republicans, and then we go on and on and on. Who controls the committee? I end my statement. Oh, one more statement. Mr. Kirschenbaum, before I forget, you said earlier you wrote the original resolution, am I correct?
I was the drafter. I incorporated comments from different council people, and I put it together in the resolution.
Did you ask any Democrats for input in this?
No. Okay. But I will say this. I draft resolutions for Democrats. I probably drafted more resolutions for Democrats and ordinances during this session, probably 3-1 to Republicans, and I don't ask the Republicans what they think of your ordinance or resolution I draft for you guys.
All right.
Okay. So that's just the procedure I've had.
So you wouldn't consider this a violation of any open meetings laws?
I had no meetings. My conversations were one-on-one with some of the members, and they're over the phone.
Oh, you talk to them individually or over the phone? Wouldn't that be a violation of open meeting laws?
No, I'm the drafter. I'm seeking input from people. And I'm not having a meeting. I'm drafting something for them because I'm their attorney.
All right.
And your attorney. When you call me, I don't call it a meeting. I say I'm talking to my friend John.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I'm calling you with a bunch of people on the line. Am I correct?
They didn't either.
Oh, okay. I'll let it go. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome, Councilman Lanning. Councilman Stichels, you're up.
Well, just to stay on this topic, I think if you do legal research, you'll find this is a violation of the open meetings law. You cannot have a rolling meeting where a majority of a legislative body agrees on a proposal without a public meeting, and that's what's happened.
You're making assumptions that are just absolutely factually and unbelievably wrong. There was no rolling meeting in this case. None whatsoever. You don't know how many people I talked to. You don't know when I talked to them. You don't know anything to make that statement. And accusing someone of violating an open meeting requires more diligence, and I'm quite surprised that you would say it's an open forum.
I'll say it in an open forum because I got a copy of a press release that quoted 5 members of the council and I got a resolution that was sponsored by 5 members of the council. That's a majority of the council. And the method at which that was devised. You're right, I have no idea how that happened. But the end result is a rolling meeting. You can't have a situation where I talk to Ken, and we agree, and then Ken talks to Paul, and they agree, and then Paul talks to Chris. That's a rolling meeting. That's not what happened. Well, how could you come up with a... That's not what happened. So you polled people and said, hey, what do you think about these? How did you get everybody to agree to 5 different items? Pretty much. You polled them. Yeah.
I talked to two council members about this, too.
Kevin,
it's not a rolling meeting.
It is. You need to look at that, because I can tell you we went over it when I was...
You're saying that if I talk to more than a quorum...
Yes.
And I didn't.
You got 5 people on the resolution?
I didn't write the press release, Stephen.
I didn't say you wrote the press release. I'm not saying you are at fault. I'm going to make that very clear. All I'm saying is that the end result, because I don't know the process, you're absolutely right, the end result was a violation of the open meetings law.
That's how Jordan.
Information. Okay, I have a point of information on the floor. Councilman Stichels.
Councilman Stichels, I never spoke to Mr. Kirschenbaum. I had no input in the drafting of his resolution. When the resolution...
How did your name get on it?
When it was sent to me, I was asked if I wanted to co-sponsor it by an email, and that's it.
There you go. You endorsed it.
Stop. I was the original sponsor of this ordinance on Wednesday. When it reached the docket, I received phone calls from other members of this body, i.e. Republicans, who said, Mike, I would like to co-sponsor this with you. I was the singular sponsor on the docket on Thursday. They saw the line on Thursday and said, wow, safety in schools, I'd like to sponsor that. It's pretty simple.
Well, we won't settle this here. On to the issue of how to deal with gun safety in our schools. I think we have really 2 different areas that we're talking about. One is that really I think the speakers emphasized is what can we do by ourselves as a city to make our schools safer. And I think that subject, while the city council can be supportive, that subject is really a school committee subject, and they know this stuff. I mean, I was on the school committee for 10 years, and I don't know, I couldn't have said a tenth of what Ms. Culhane and Ms. Ruggieri said. So I think the best people to deal with those issues are the school committee with the police department, and that they should then, either we should have a joint meeting, probably should have a joint meeting, and the school committee should say, here's what we got, here's what we're doing now, and here's what we suggest for improvements. So I think that's one path we should take. And then the other path is to do with resolutions of things that we don't control, that are really state issues, like John's resolution, like banning assault weapons, like banning high-capacity magazines, better background checks, more money for mental health services in and out of the schools, those kinds of things. But I think I will offer an amendment at some point. I don't want to do that until people have a chance to talk, calling for a joint meeting of the council and the school committee with the input from the police department about how to make our schools safer, and that really is a better route to go than this committee that's being proposed, which frankly I think is just going to be a quagmire, and it's going to take 4 or 5 meetings just to find out what the school department is already doing and understand it, And we can go a lot faster if we just have them come in and tell us that.
Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, President Farina. I'd just like to thank the members of the public this evening for coming out. It was a lot of good testimony. I learned a lot about your comments and how you feel about things. I'd also like to say I want to thank President Farina for sending this to a commission, because I think we need to bring other parties, and I think the school committee has the expertise on school safety. I'd also like to hear from the parents. I'd like to hear from the teachers. I think we need the police involved, the fire. So it's going to be a collaborative effort, and I think that's the direction we should take. However, in the ultimate goal, my colleague, Mr. Stakos, is correct. It is a school committee under its auspices. However, whatever the school committee needs, Steve, we're going to have to be involved, because we're the funding mechanism, and we're going to have to know step by step what needs to be implemented. So I think we, as you said, we need a couple of joint meetings with the school committee and the council, and we need to move forward with this. And I'm glad everybody came out, so thank you.
Councilman McCauley.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be brief. I have a lot of respect for all of you fellow council people, but I'm really disappointed that, Council President, you say it was Wednesday, and you're probably right, but I didn't realize this, I didn't see this on my text till Friday, the press release and the resolution. And I think I've shown in the past that I'm willing to work with both parties. I've actually been criticized by my own party for getting along with some of you too well, but I won't change. That being said, I will support this going to committee. It needs to be discussed with all different parties, and I think you selected a good variety to sit down and discuss this and get some solutions to it. But I'm also going to vote for Councilman Laney's resolution. I just feel in the future, if we're all truly working for the betterment of the citizens of Cranston, that we work jointly, and I think we can get a lot of good things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCauley. One of the big reasons I didn't call you and ask you to be a sponsor is I didn't want to get accused of having a rolling meeting, but I do appreciate your support tonight. Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, President. I'd like to thank some of the speakers that spoke tonight, very articulate. And one of the things that I learned in education is that you learn more when you listen, not when you're speaking. If you think that just guns in schools is the issue, then you don't know what you're talking about. We have more problems in our schools, and I've lived it, 37 years in education, with a master's degree in education. I've spent my whole life there. My son's the principal at Smithfield High School. My wife teaches at Bain. My daughter teaches at Cranston East. Thankfully, I just retired from teaching. This is an issue that is more than guns. And I'm going to point out a few that I've seen in my years. Gangs. Major, major problem. I had a student walk out of my classroom and get in a car because he was forced to by a gang. Fights in schools. You know how many fights that have broken up in the hallways? The first responders, teachers. We're very lucky in Cranston that we have the teachers that we have. Very, very lucky. Just like we had our first responders get recognized tonight. The teachers that we have will do exactly what that coach down in Parkland did. Our teachers will jump in front of a bullet to save their kids.
But they shouldn't have to.
I went after a student one day right here in Cranston East, in the auto shop, with the vice principal that was here tonight. We tackled him because he had a gun in his waistband. How did it get there? Well, we don't know. But the reason why it was there, and this is the biggest problem in schools, bullying, which leads to most of the problems. On an average, 600,000 kids stay home on a daily basis in the United States because they're being bullied in school. This is bigger than just guns, people. And what we need to do is look at, as a group, all of us, I don't care what party we're with, I don't care where we live in Cranston, this needs to be addressed as one. We need to protect our kids and our teachers. Now, I don't know how we're going to do it, and I don't know what the answer is. I hope a lot of it comes out of this committee. But we've got soft targets all over the place. Most of you go to Thanksgiving Day football game. 4,000 or 5,000 people. There's no security at the front gates. Talk about a soft target. Kids going on buses. Kids walking from East to Briggs. Cranston West, 5 buildings. These are soft targets. Our sporting events. I was at the Cranston East LaSalle basketball game the other night. 1,200 people. Talk about a soft target. I've done the Alice training. I stood there when the policemen came in with the guns. And you know what I had to defend myself? A wastebasket. I threw the wastebasket at him and ran out the door. Guys, this is a bigger issue than just guns in schools. Suzanne Arena made a great point of the resolution. We have to be leaders on this. So I respect that comment. We all have to, not just the people sitting here. All of you have to help us figure this out. This isn't just this subcommittee. This is Cranston, one city trying to figure out what every city in the country is doing right now. We're not the only ones studying this problem tonight, I can assure you that. Across the country, every city council is working on this problem. Teachers are trained. They're trained to work with your kids. But the one thing that I took out of 36 years in education is a quote, and I learned it early. Kids want to know how much you care more than they care about how much you know. Think of that for a minute. Kids want to know how much we care. And if we really and truly and honestly care about our kids in the future of this city, we need to build bridges and come together and everybody collaborate as one unit to save our future in this city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Hopkins. Councilman Colford.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate it. And I would like to thank all the audience in their participation tonight. It's a lot of information, and it helps understand where we are in this. And I think all of us really truly care about the safety of our children. I know my kids had the good fortune of going through and graduating through Cranston schools. I have niece and nephew in schools, and I have lots of nieces and nephews that went through the Cranston system. And as a former member of the school committee, I certainly understand the importance of that in the education. Nothing's more important than our children. And so I know ultimately we all want to get to the solution, and I don't know that there is necessarily the best solution or a solution. But certainly, I want to thank the Council President, for allowing me to be part of this subcommittee And I look forward to the work collectively to come to a viable resolution we can present to the state legislature to take common sense action. Ultimately, we really need to get to the root cause of this in order to solve the problem. I deal in business, and for me, it's always about how do I get to the root cause of the problem? Because if I don't, if I try to go after the problem just on the surface, just at the top, and I really don't get to the bottom of it, I'm never going to solve that problem. It's going to come back, and it's going to come back again and again and again. And so I look forward to this. I would say to, I do want to say to one of my fellow councilmen that you do not know how I was asked to sponsor this bill, and I take offense to the fact that you assume how it was done. I would ask you also, how do you have individuals join your resolutions, of which there are many of them? And is that a role meeting when you do that? I don't know. I'm not there. I wasn't present. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I think the time to act with school safety was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I remember being in high school when Columbine happened, and we were scared then, that something could happen at our school. So we can't wait a minute longer. I don't know where to start. This is a multifaceted issue, but I hope the subcommittee can act quickly and swiftly with the school committee and get to work on this. So I will be voting in favor of sending this to the subcommittee. Thank you.
Are you going to make an amendment, Councilman Stichels? Well, let me speak on the bill before you make an amendment, as I'm the only one who has not spoken yet. For me, this is about school safety, not gun control. Gun control will take a long time, is extremely tough to implement, and is done at the state and federal level. For me, as a father with 2 young children in the Cranston Public Schools, I wanted to take action and do something. And to be honest with you, I waited far too long. It's what happens when you're a new council president. After a few years in the council, you get to be a leader. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out what you need to do. I feel this is a step to work collaboratively across party lines as a group to solve this problem. I want this group to come out with solutions, not rhetoric, not politicians accusing other politicians of having rolling meetings in the middle of a meeting, not asking, why didn't you hear my bill a year ago? Why are you doing it tonight? It's on tonight. It's getting a hearing tonight. Might have taken too long to act, but we're acting. I asked my son, how would you feel if there were more police officers in your school? And my 9-year-old looked at me and said, safe. I would feel safe, Daddy. I take offense to everyone who stood up tonight and talked about our police force making schools feel unsafe. That is just not true. Someone did bring up a point. In this resolution, we talk about lockboxes. The reason we talk about lockboxes is because it's currently legal to carry a concealed weapon into a school. Whether we pass Councilman Lanny's resolution or not, that will still be legal tomorrow. When I wrote this, I put in place a mechanism to ensure, if for some reason the state legislature does not act, we will have a mechanism to keep weapons out of schools. I know some of these measures will cost money. That's why I've created a commission led by our finance chairman, whose duty it is to root out these things and see what they cost. He may be a Republican, but he also happens to be the finance chair. I then put one member of each party on, and as ex officio, I sit to break ties. Fortunately, that's the way the parliamentary procedure works. I could put every councilman on there. I could put tons of people. The goal is to try to have an actionable solution, and I think 5 members is the best way to get to an actionable solution. Councilman Lanny mentioned earlier that I asked Colonel Winquist in a budget meeting about concealed carry permits, and he is correct because I have a concealed carry permit. And I asked him, Mr. Winquist, Colonel Winquist, do you believe someone should carry a weapon in the school? And he said no. And I said to him, Well, what would happen if I was to bring my weapon to school? He said, lock it in your car. And I looked at him and I said, you do realize the legislation at the State House would make parking lots school grounds, and you would make my non-criminal behavior criminal, punishable by 5 years in jail and a $20,000 fine. That is why I have yet to approve the concealed carry weapons ban, because there is no mechanism to put in place a law-abiding citizen to leave their weapon in their vehicle, go into school, and pick up their kid. I have a fundamental issue with that. I don't believe in making non-criminal behavior criminal. I'm sorry if I believe that you should create a law that fundamentally does not put someone in jail for leaving their weapon in their car to go pick up their kid. So, that's where I feel on both resolutions. I'm going to vote to send this resolution to the study commission, and I will make a motion to amend Councilman Landy's bill to ensure that when this does go for General Assembly, if it does pass, they take the considerations of parking lots and what school grounds is to heart, because you literally could put an innocent person in jail for no reason. Councilman Stichels, you have an amendment.
Yes, what I would suggest is that this be added to, as an addition to what Councilman Poplauskas proposed, that the City Council asks the school committee, in cooperation with the Cranston Police Department, to present current school safety measures and the school committee's recommendations for improvements the city can take at a joint meeting with the City Council.
Under discussion, do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Under discussion? Councilman Favecchio.
Thank you, Council President. My only concern, Councilman Stichels, with that is that that's exactly what the committee is doing. Putting the school committee chairperson on the committee, we're going to have experts from the school department, the police department, the fire department, testify as experts and give us their presentation so that we can expedite this. My goal is to get this done in March, because we have, the budget season is going to start early April. The budget announcement comes out on the 28th, I believe, of March, somewhere right around the end of March. So April, we have to be looking into the budget season. So I'd like to have this committee finish its job and report to the full council. Obviously, everyone can attend anyway, but I don't see why we have to have a joint meeting with the school committee. They're going to be part of this committee, and they're going to present in a very concise hour, 2-hour format, whatever it takes, so that we can get this done. I don't want to drag it out. I think that your proposal is just going to make it take longer. I don't think it's going to expedite anything. We certainly want to hear from someone representing students, someone representing parents, but we don't want to make it 4-hour sessions every day, every time, because we'll never get to some recommendations by the end of the month. And if there's anything we can do for the budget season, I'd like to have it done by the 1st of April.
You may.
Maybe what we ought to do is, Mr. Jerry is still here. Maybe you could tell us, would you be able to tell us what kind of a timeline, because this, as Councilman Favecchio was saying, and what I'm also saying, is whenever that, the process is going to start, and really most of the work is going to be done by the school department, when do you think you would be in a position to come to the, present recommendations and what you're doing now?
So through the chair to Chairwoman Ruggieri, Councilman Stichels would like to know if you'd be able to basically have the meeting he's referring to or would you prefer to have the meeting in Councilman Favicchio's subcommittee? I do think the meeting is a valid presentation of the school committee. We're trying to get the idea of when the best time to have this.
Well, I guess my concern is March, because today is February 26th, and you want this done in March, and I'm not sure what your meeting schedules are and what our meeting schedules are. And then I'm concerned about the short time frame that you're talking about to actually get things done.
Well, if I may, Council President, well, we have a little bit more time. We don't need to finish it at the beginning of budget season, but, my goal is to try to get it pretty far along. We have probably until May, actually, to get, when we get to the final budget vote. So we have plenty of time. So I think there's enough time, but I'd like to have your participation as a member so that, we have your input, and then you could help us with the experts that may testify before us. And I think that would expedite it a little bit, rather than having one meeting. Because I think it's going to take more than just the school department. I think we need the police department. We may need some outside risk analysis company.
To your point, we've hired an architectural engineering group. That's what I was speaking about earlier tonight, the first district leadership meeting that we had tonight, to look at all of our buildings, and one of the pieces is safety and security. So when you talk about the things that we want done or the things that we're looking at, we're not looking at just the buildings that we have standing here today, because we don't know that those are going to be the buildings that we're going to have in 5 years. So changes that we're making, or changes that we want to make, might be a little bit more short-term. There's some things that we're working on currently that are going to take a while, just because of the cost involved. So we're trying to parse it out a little bit. Without being fresh, we don't want to give away everything that we're doing to provide safety and security in our schools. That we wish to talk about all of the measures that we've taken. I'm certain that I can get enough information together in a short amount of time to get a framework of what we're looking for, because it's a larger issue, and it's not just renovations and things like that. We're really looking to guidance counselors, social workers, school psychologists, the social issues, the mental health issues. That's all got to be part of this conversation. So when you talk about bringing in experts, I think you need to start talking about bringing in mental health experts and all these other pieces, not just the actual safety. I think that's part of the safety. And as Mr. Hopkins, Councilman Hopkins spoke about, bullying and all the things that we've done to, try to deal with that issue. There's more work to be done, so.
If I may interject to both my colleagues, since I think we can just approve this amendment, add it as a number 6, and figure out if the meeting needs to come before the full council or the subcommittee when we have the subcommittee. So I would just urge passage of this resolution to continue the ball rolling forward in the spirit of partnership. Maybe they can't come before the full council in the next month or so. Maybe that's germane. So Councilman Stichels, I'm all for it. Let's move this forward in the spirit of partnership. Any other discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lee?
Yes. On the amendment. Apologies, Councilman.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Floyd?
Yes.
Councilman Carroll?
Yes.
Councilman Colfer?
Yes.
Councilman Velasquez?
Yes.
Councilman Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman Lee?
Yes. Any further amendments? Any further discussion on the resolution? We've all spoken once. We're good? On the resolution, as amended.
Councilman Lee?
I have a motion to approve the motion as amended.
The motion is...
So the motion is, I need a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second.
I thought the motion was...
To send it to committee.
Because I don't want to vote for the...
No, we're sending it to the subcommittee. It's 10:15, we're all getting a little punchy. We're sending it to the subcommittee, just to clear up any conception, yes? as amended. Thank you, gentlemen, for keeping me honest. Clerk, please take the roll.
Council Laney?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman McDonald?
Yes.
Councilman Colford?
Yes.
Councilman Velasquez?
Yes.
Councilman Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Moving on to the second resolution of the evening. Resolution urging the General Assembly to pass legislation banning guns in schools, sponsored by Councilman Lanning. Motion. Second. I wanted a second. I have a motion to approve in a second. Under discussion? Councilman Lanning?
Thank you, Council President. Finally, we get a vote. I'll say something about persistence. Well, I'm a very persistent person, I guess. This resolution is banning guns in school, concealed weapons in school. Now, I know you want to amend it, and you want to say school grounds. Well, that's fine, I can live with that. But you could have done this 10 months ago. And that's what bothers me. We wasted all this time, 10 months, when we could have accomplished everything we're talking about tonight. And that's what's frustrating about being involved in political fights. And I look at this as a political fight, that's all it was. A little spat between colleagues. Well, I hope this is the last spat. I hope we can work together, cooperatively, as a council, instead of as two different groups of people. I'll put my best foot forward, and I hope you put your best foot forward also. So let's try to work together in the future, and let bygones be bygones.
Councilman Velasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. So this had come in front of the ordinance committee, or was presented to the council and sent to the ordinance committee. But the first time it was sent, it was already held for further study, so it got tabled. And I believe the position of the committee was, once it came back in front of the General Assembly, we would discuss it again. So this is the first opportunity we've had. I asked that it come right in front, don't go to the ordinance committee, come right in front of us now so we can debate it. That being said, a couple years ago, Councilman Laney and I both voted against this. I remember that clearly. Just like him, I had to change the heart and change the position on this. I believe schools are a place for education, and nobody should be concerned about concealed carry. We should leave the security up to the professionals, to the police department, and take other measures, of course, but I think the police should be the ones that have to carry the guns and do that. I'm also concerned because maybe someday in the future, national concealed carry will have, I don't know, a loophole in the General Assembly to allow for somebody with a Utah permit or somebody with a New Mexico permit, or whatever restrictions or not restrictions they have, not be able to come into our schools. So I'll be voting for this resolution tonight. I hope we can all work collaboratively in the future, and the school committee with all of us here, regardless of party, and do the people's business. Thank you.
Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President Farina. Just for the record, there were occasions where I made a motion to approve this bill. There are occasions where I made motions to take it off the table. But because the Democrats, the minority party, we didn't have another vote to hear the bill. So politics played a role. Also, in all fairness to the chairman of a committee cannot make a motion or a second, so he's kind of restricted also. So because of the parliamentary procedures, the majority party kind of held this bill a little more frequently. I had issues with it, but over time, I think the testimony and the long conversations with that gentleman, letters to the editor, and testimony convinced me this is the right thing to do, so I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Council President, I applaud Councilman Velasquez. I thought it was well said. I think we can certainly work together for the future. But I also am proud of John Manning, and I'm happy this day has come, and now it's time to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
resolution. I want to thank John Mann for sticking with it and pursuing this so that we are going to get a vote on it. As to Councilman Favicchio's statements on that it doesn't solve the problem, I agree with that, but we never said that it was going to solve all the problem. We thought it was an easy step that could be taken. That was, we knew there was action at the State House to support this, and we were trying to move the process along. So we never presented it as the answer, but merely a piece. And I don't think there is an answer, one answer. This is, as you said, a difficult problem, and it needs lots of steps taken to solve it.
Councilman Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. My only concern with it is that I don't know how it's, if it were to pass at the General Assembly. We have no way of knowing. So we're going to continue to do our work without knowing whether or not it's going to pass, because it could be up there until May, June, and we don't know when it will be resolved there. There are some logistical nightmares that I think it presents with regard to what about people who have a concealed permit that might live in a house that's within so many feet of the school, or walks by the school. The city hall is right in between the school buildings. But based on what I said earlier, I don't think it's going to have, its impact is so little. And I don't think that the resolution could have been changed any time in the last year as well to include a much greater safety issue and not just go after concealed carry permits, which now I know that they're on in our schools. The question is how many people from outside, out of the other 3,000 people that might have a concealed permit are going to come on to Cranston with an intent to do harm. But this is something that the legislature, I think now will hear, because I've seen quite a flurry of activity, and there will be a bunch of guns control bills that will go up before the legislature in the next week. And so, one of my jobs is practice on that legislation. So I've seen quite a bit go in the last couple of days. This may very well get heard, and it's the General Assembly's job to deal with it anyway. So whatever they decide, we really will have no control over. So I don't have a problem sending it up there. Whether or not I think the committee will continue to do its work based on the laws as we know them, and if something passes, fine, but I don't think it's going to have that tremendous an impact.
Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, President. I just want to reiterate the concept of what is a campus. When I was the athletic director, we determined at that time that any student athletes that traveled to a facility that was not part of the main campus was considered part of the campus. So if kids get in the car and drive to the ice rink, or if kids from Cranston West drive up to Hope Road, I would like to make sure that this committee considers that those areas are part of the campus, which would include Doric Avenue. We send our girls' soccer team down there, Cranston Stadium, which is a couple of blocks away, but it's still part of our campus. So the general rule that we used to use in athletics was anything or any place where our student athletes go to is an extension of the campus. So hopefully our subcommittee will keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
Councilman Lamb.
Thank you. Just in response to Councilman's idea of campus, is that a state law? Or is that just a local thing that the school committee put together or the principals put together?
Well, Councilman Lady, from what I remember, we had an incident where,
No, I just want to know where the school is. I don't want to hear the stories about the incidences or anything else.
well, I think it's relevant. It's relevant to determine what led to the lawsuit because it determined what the campus was or was not. So if a student athlete gets in a car and drives to Hope Road and gets in an accident, he's still on campus. But if he gets in a car and drives to Smithfield Ice Rink, he's no longer on campus.
Oh, so you're saying, well, that would apply to school buses also, am I correct?
Under school bus supervision, they're fine. But if they get into a car, a personal car,
Mr. Jerry, you still there? Could you answer this question for me?
So through the chair, I will, just to reiterate what I believe, and this is from memory, the last Guns and Safety in Schools Act referenced as school grounds was any place where students congregate for an area of education, enrichment, or athletic activity.
The kids come to
Excuse me,
donuts.
I'm giving the definition
I
based
know,
on
you guys are
legislation.
splitting the proverbial hair.
He asked a question, I'm
You're splitting the
answering it.
proverbial hair.
You
I'm
asked.
sorry. I'm sorry. You're splitting the proverbial hair. You're making it so that now the children, you don't want them to go anywhere, which is exactly why you're not.
Excuse me.
It's exactly why you're afraid of your guns.
This is
Because
not
you're going
germane.
to stop us eventually when we go to the mall, and when we go to the cinema, and when we go anywhere.
Excuse me.
Maybe you would have listened to me for a minute instead of banging your gavel.
You have.
I've been here for 3.5 hours.
Point of information.
Yes, Councilman.
John?
Yes?
What Kenny was citing was case law and suit.
Oh, I
Judge
just-
rendering the decision.
I
So
was
your
just-
answer would be, it's state law at this
No,
time.
I just got State of Rhode Island General Assembly, H 7591, now quoted. For this purposes, in this section, school grounds
Is that 99.6% of other individuals in the state do not have a concealed carry permit. And a couple of our council members tonight have already said this doesn't solve the problem. And again, as a business person working my team, if it doesn't solve the problem, then let's get to the root cause. So thank you very much.
Okay, so for me, I have a lot of issues with the current Safe Schools bill that is before the General Assembly. I made some of them known in my prior statement. It's that definition of school grounds that basically says it's anywhere that you can be on school property. So as a concealed carry permit holder, I think about those times when I'm coming into City Hall and I'm parking my car in the parking lot. Maybe I'm going to a council meeting. Maybe there's going to be 100 people here. Maybe I'm carrying my firearm, maybe I'm not. The state law that the Safe Schools Act is presenting would make that practice illegal and make me a criminal. And I'm in City Hall, not in school. I don't plan on going to school. I'll tell you, that's probably one of the biggest reasons I haven't supported this bill, and every time it came before the committee where I was a member, I did the second. I made those positions felt when we initially talked about it in February of last year. Democrats never changed the bill. When in fact, I'll admit my fault. I never asked them to change it. But I heard a lot of Democrats talk about politicizing an issue. We're all guilty. And we let this issue get politicized. And let it become more than it was. Because in reality, we can't change concealed carry permits in school. General Assembly might hear it, they might not. At this point, it's time to take a vote. I'm not going to bother amending this because I think there are too many loose places in which school grounds can be talked about, i.e., you think about the Chafee complex. At times, that could be considered school grounds. So because it's school grounds once a week, does that make it school grounds all the time? So if someone who has a concealed carry permit holder who is a victim of a violent crime goes to that place to exercise or run and happens to be concealing a weapon because that is their right and they have a permit, that practice is now illegal. So again, the law has a lot of little flaws that nobody's talking about. They're talking about, oh, keep guns out of schools, and that's great. My hope is the General Assembly addresses these massive flaws, because that way they'll pass a bill that will keep guns out of schools. If they don't, a lot of people like you guys will keep going to the State House and testifying in those 8-hour marathon sessions and nothing will change. I wish you the best of luck. Clerk, please take the roll.
Council Lee?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colford?
No.
Council Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes. Motion passes. Moving on, next item of business. We have a resolution ratifying. If you guys want to wait a minute so you can all see that, it's late. The next resolution, while everybody's escaping, the next resolution will be withdrawn. There is no need for that one currently. The resolution authorizing approving direct employment with certain law firms to represent the community in potential litigation against contributors of opioid addiction crisis. Council Vice President Vecchio, as I am an employee of one of the largest drug tributaries in the state, I will have to recuse myself from this vote and discussion on this matter.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion,
Second.
Okay, under discussion. Councilman Lee.
Yeah, I need a my son worked for a pharmaceutical company with my
No, Councilman Lee, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Stichels.
I've got the same question. If my wife is a physician, should I recuse myself?
No, even though I didn't give the reasons, but when you're part of a larger class, that doesn't create a conflict. It has to be much more particularized than just being part of the general class. So,
Okay, remember that from school issues.
Anyone else? I'll just make a quick comment. This was, I sponsored this. This is a large group across the country that are suing makers of drugs and opioids. And this lawsuit will seek to recover monies for all of the costs associated with it. You know, we've seen a rise in the use of Narcan and other fire and rescue people going out, and police going out to help people who are addicted to opioids. And this lawsuit, it's no cost to the city. The law firm will do it out of complete contingency. And they're supported by some major law firms across the country who are spending millions of dollars of their own money actually to support this legislation, this lawsuit. And I think that we should do this. I think it's a good move. And we're ready to sign a contract with the attorneys to bring this to a head. It may take a while, but we could recover some money from this.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Lee?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colford?
Yes.
Council Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes. And gather back to Council President.
Good luck with your lawsuit, gentlemen. Report of committees. Claims Committee, the settlements of the Claims Committee are here on the docket for anyone who browse. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Finance Committee, Council Vice President Vecchio.
Thank you, Council President. First, we have a resolution authorizing real estate tax abatements. Approved unanimously in committee.
Have a motion to have a second?
Second.
On discussion? Clerk, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Lee?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colford?
Yes.
Council Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Vecchio?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements.
You have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. Have a second. Under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Lee?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colfer?
Yes.
Council Voskis?
Yes.
Council Vecchio?
Yes. Yes.
And lastly, we have the tax interest waiver approved.
Have motion approved?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have motion approved, second, under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Leeang?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colfer?
Yes.
Council Voskis?
Yes.
Council Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Leeang?
Yes. To remind the committee about these two sewer connections, these are things we have to vote on as purely a matter of course. We cannot stop them as they are allowed under state jurisdiction. However, we have something in the code that means we have to vote on them. So Councilman Hopkins, I will allow you to continue with the business of public works.
Thank you, President. Johnston Sewer Connection Request 180 Shun Pike, Cardillo Apple Processing, been accepted in committee.
Motion approved.
Second. And motion is second, under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Council Leeang? Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colfer?
Yes.
Council Voskis?
Yes.
Council Vecchio?
Yes. Yes.
The Johnston Sewer Connection Request intersection of Simmonsville Ave and Playfield Street, Cataldi Associates, again, has been approved in committee.
Entertain a motion approved. Second. Have a second, under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Leeang?
Yes.
Council, actually, we have some discussion, Councilman Colfer.
Council Chairman, as a Director of Operations for Wendy's, I'm going to recuse myself on this. Thank you.
Makes sense. I have a recusal. Clerk, please take the roll.
Council Leeang?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Voskis?
Yes.
Council Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Leeang?
Yes. Election of city officers, Rosemary Da Silva resigned from the Library Board of Trustees as of resignation effective January 18th, 2019. Is that a scribbler's error supposed to say 2018, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
Okay, so she resigns on January 18th, 2018. Mary Ann Slocum is member appointment to expire July 25th, 2020. I'll take a motion to approve Ms. Slocum.
So moved.
And motion for second? A motion for second. Under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Council Leeang?
Yes.
Council Hopkins?
Yes.
Council Stichels?
Yes.
Council Foley?
Yes.
Council Marquardt?
Yes.
Council Colfer?
Yes.
Council Voskis?
Yes.
Council Vecchio?
Yes.
Council Leeang?
Yes.
Point of information,
Yes, Councilman.
skip the public hearing. Let me go back.
Oh, I apologize. It's at the bottom of page 2 on my paper document. Would anyone like to say anything about anything tonight? Come on, Rick.
1 minute.
Rob.
1 minute.
Bunch. Tired.
Good evening, Robert Sancher, SIN-TU-2R-9, 30 Egan Road, here in Cranston, Mass. I'll keep my remarks extremely brief. 2 points. 1, I just want to say, I stood here 8 months now when you guys were debating the No Gun schools, and I bashed some of you for not having a vote, and bashed some of you for not, having a vote. Instead, you had a vote. And for those of you who said what you said and had a change of heart, and, finally put on the table, I thank you. And I want to say that I appreciate that, and I think anyone who, said, you didn't want to take the vote, they can say now, thank you for finally having a vote and letting people speak in front of the full council about this issue. The other reason why I'm up here, the big reason why I'm up here, is when we have these committee meetings, I know they're going to involve some sensitive information involving school procedures for safety, but I think due to the attention demand about, people wanting to attend these meetings, I think it would be the best interest of the council to film at least portions of these committee meetings and widely distribute them online, because, there are 10,000 kids in Cranston, and I don't think this room can fit 10,000. I don't think Cranston East can fit 10,000 people. So I think that's just something to consider when you're deciding to have these meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Santori.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about the I don't know how you put it in Councilman McCauley, but it's regarding the aqueduct. I was looking to have that, I asked him to have that road repaved. It's now very busy because residents are going to Dave's Market. That road has been atrocious for a very long time. It's not a state road. It would be nice to have maybe even a maybe shadow lines or something on it to just to let people know that there's a playground or something there. There's a lot of stop signs, but the road is in really bad condition. They keep carving it out, so we really would like to have that road repaved. Thank you.
So Director of Administration, can you add that as a note?
Look at it, but I'm not sure where it is on the paving list, so if you can add neighborhoods are on the list. The other thing is, before we would pave, part of the issue is also speed and traffic around the playgrounds. Sometimes paving has the opposite effect. It creates more speeding issues, so if we do pave, then there has to be some traffic calming measures. It may be a little bit of a project.
Shadow lines are really good.
Yes, I mean, we have to look at something, because if we just pave it, we may create more of a nightmare in some ways, so we'll look at it.
Hey, Deputy Chief White, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I forgot in my comments, I wanted to thank the councilman that reached out to me the day after, or some that night when we found out we had 14 firefighters injured. And I also want to thank the mayor and the administration. They've been great with, we've cut through all the red tape, we've got some pretty stringent IAD language. We've cut through all the red tape, and we've got guys in our female firefighter to meeting calling on just that week, and any other doctors we needed. So I want to thank the city for their response to us, and to you guys also. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Anyone else like to speak anything? When you receive the report of special counsel and consultants pursuant to Charter Section 1505, if you have any questions, now is the time. That being done, the floor is yours, Director.
Yes, the request is placed on pension from Private Craig Marcinyak. The administration supports this. We're actually pleased. This was a long outstanding one that the city has had for many years now. So we are pleased to be putting Private Marcinyak on the pension.
That would be fantastic.
Secondly, can we vote on that?
Yeah, we do. I was about to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's getting late, it's okay. See, now I forget what I say. Okay, Private Craig Marcinyak has been voted on pension rolls, mid-L qualifications, so I want to say motion approved.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion is second, and discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lanning?
Yes.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Kano?
Yes.
Councilman Colbert?
Yes.
Councilman Voskis?
Yes.
Councilman Mayfield?
Yes.
Councilman Lee.
Yes. Madam, has the Deputy Chief Stephen McIntosh no qualifications to remain employed for one more year?
Deputy Chief Steve McIntosh certainly has, and we're very pleased that he wants to. So
Excellent.
I don't usually get to have them here and thank you for their service directly, but Chief, thank you for your continued service and your desire to continue to serve.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. With that, I will take, Councilman Stichels.
Quick question that really doesn't have anything to do with Mr. McIntosh in particular.
Can we go to him first then?
Well, that's what it is. But the question is if he wants to serve another year, then does that come back to the council or is that an administrative decision?
No, it's a council.
Every year. And you're asking for a year because that's the most we can ask for, or?
He's north of 55, they get one.
1 year.
I don't want to divulge his age, but yeah.
Well, I can just say north of the max.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing none, we have discussion. Seeing none, vote, please take the roll. I'd say motion approved.
Motion.
Second. Second. Motion is second. Deputy Chief, good job.
Councilman Lanning?
Of course.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Kano?
With pleasure, yes.
Councilman Colbert?
Yes.
Councilman Voskis?
Yes.
Councilman Mayfield?
Yes. And yes for me. Would it be within the realm of discussion if we did skip all our communications and email them to the administration?
Absolutely.
Does anyone object?
I can hand out the numbers on the settlement, the lawsuit, do you like that?
Does anyone object to just reading the business and calling it out? Okay, so we're going to skip all our communications then. Nobody's going to pontificate anymore. We've all done that enough. Old business, there is no old business. Introduction, new business, Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Proposed ordinance 2-1801, authorizing the city to construct a dog park on Stony Acre Drive, sponsored by Council President Farina, Councilman Kaplowskis, to refer to ordinance committee for hearing on March 15th. Proposed ordinance 2-1801.
Madam Clerk, can we do this as a block?
Sure.
I'd like to take a motion to send all ordinances as written to the correct committees for a block.
Second.
I have that resolution sent to proper committees as a block, and a second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Lanning?
Yes.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman McCauley? Councilman Arquette?
Yes.
Councilman Colford?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas? Council Vice President Vickia?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes, now, motion to approve the block. All in favor? Aye. With that, the City Council's next regular monthly meeting will be held on Monday, March 26, 2018. If there is no other business to come before the body this evening, I'll entertain a motion. As a block, we did it all. As a